This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
Good morning. 3 minutes after 10 is the time. We're getting a second summer, aren't we? It's lovely. I got some good news for you. Well, I think it's good news. I was a bit downcast yesterday by the apparent decision of Sir Keir Starmer not to engage in the youth mobility scheme. You remember on his visit to Germany, one of the headlines was that they had turned down or rejected the opportunity to join the youth mobility scheme. So I did, because I'm a bit weird, I did consult some experts yesterday afternoon, and the general consensus is, among the people who really know what they're talking about, and I see this reflected in some corners of the media this morning, that this is how you negotiate. So because the European Union, the big actors in the European Union want us to engage in the youth mobility scheme, because although it's obviously good for us, it's also very good for them. It gives us a little tiny bit of leverage as the very, very, very junior partner in any negotiations as a third country. So the clever people tell me that it is most likely that that is something which will be returned to as a negotiating tactic. So Starmer or his people will say, well, OK, if you give us that, then we will go in on the youth mobility scheme. So in many ways, I thought that is the essence of Brexit Britain, in that we have to use something that is good for us, but arguably as good or even better for our negotiating partners. Rather than just saying, yeah, we'll take that, thanks, that's great. We have to. That's the only leverage we've got in these but it's still good news, because most people who know what they're talking about told me yesterday, and as I say, the newspaper, some of the coverage, some of the commentary seems to support this today, that it will probably be something that we do, or he does do, as a consequence of other negotiations and other checks and balances. Because I read somewhere that you reach your peak as a negotiator at the age of 3. Have you ever heard this? Think about it. You probably got more achieved at the age of 3 during negotiations, because you could just scream. Or you could just sit on the floor of the supermarket and go all floppy and refuse to move. Or you could shout the absolute loudest you were physically capable of for 20 minutes. The negotiating skills that you have at the age of 3 are never surpassed. But obviously that is not a tactic, despite the best efforts of David Frost and Boris Johnson to deploy the negotiating tactics of three-year-olds when they were actually negotiating Brexit. It sadly doesn't work in the adult universe. And it is to the youth that we turn first this morning. There's quite a few stories like this around at the moment, and we have to be careful not to feed ourselves an unleavened diet of unhappiness, don't we? The only countries in Europe where, well, I'll give you more details in a minute, because the headline is that the average 15-year-old in Britain, more 15-year-olds in Britain, are reporting low life satisfaction than almost anywhere else in Europe. It has been described as a happiness recession. We sit at the bottom of European rankings in terms of life satisfaction across 27 nations. This is analysis by the Children's Society. One interesting measure would see 25% of 15-year-olds here reporting low life satisfaction, compared with just 7% of Dutch children. And that is the lowest level for us of any of the countries surveyed. Girls and teenage children from disadvantaged backgrounds in Britain are particularly affected. Food poverty. Isn't that a heartbreaking phrase? Food poverty, highlighted as a significant reason behind the poor well-being numbers. So if you find a 15-year-old who reports being unhappy, one of the key reasons in Brexit Britain will be that they're hungry, or that they are experiencing food poverty. The only countries that are worse than us in Europe on that specific measure on food deprivation are Bulgaria, Romania, and Lithuania. But the bigger picture will be more nuanced, won't it? The bigger picture will be more detailed. And look, we're not way ahead of every other country. We are just ahead of countries like Poland and Germany and Ireland who come in sort of behind us on this. And something occurred to me yesterday when we were discussing the visit of Keir Starmer to Germany, and our callers from continental Europe once again provided us with insights that we would struggle to find, I think, from a uniquely British perspective. it occurred to me that the best way into this conversation today would be to call first upon people who possibly can make direct comparisons. So I could sit here now and tell you why I think British children are the saddest in Europe. And you could probably predict many of the things that I would say. And you could probably predict part of the response, which would be, well, that's not unique to the United Kingdom. So spending too much time on smartphones, for example, is not unique to the United Kingdom. Is there a case, I wonder, for the English language being a contributor to the obsession with smartphones? If you don't have great English, is the internet as seductive as it is for people who do have great English? I'm thinking of American influence here on social media and platforms like that. How much time would you spend on TikTok? I know there's French TikTok and Dutch TikTok and Chinese TikTok and all the other TikToks, but I presume the massive bulk of it is going to reflect the English language. I mean, maybe Mandarin is huge, but most people in continental Europe don't speak Mandarin. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud because you need to point back to something. You need to push back to something that you could reasonably argue is specific to, unique to, or peculiar to the United Kingdom, to Britain. And I don't know what the answer would be. So what I do know is that many people listening to this now will have experience of life in both the UK and Poland, or both the UK and Germany. I'm going to do a few of these. Or both the UK and Ireland. Or both the UK and Italy. Or the UK and Sweden. The UK and France. The UK and Spain. Romanian teenagers are infinitely happier than ours. Well, considerably happier than ours, even though they are among the few countries close to us on the food poverty measure. So why? With the comparison, with a little bit of Mark, you make me laugh, Mark, with this. I can't believe they're unhappy. They've got smartphones and Xboxes and we never did. That's a beautiful contribution from the perspective, I presume, of early middle age. Because I would have thought, you'd have thought the same. I always remember my first producer on this programme, lovely bloke. And he used to get, he was very mild-mannered. He very rarely lost his temper, even working with me in my pre-therapy days. He very rarely lost his temper. He was a master class of moderation and modesty. And he used to get so cross about the phone-in trope of young people spending all their time playing video games and instead of being outdoors, because he would point out quite reasonably, and this is 20 years ago, goodness knows how much things have improved since then, he'd point out quite reasonably that rather than having to stand in the dripping rain, frozen to your marrow, while someone twice the size of you sat on your head in a scrum, or pushed you over on the football pitch, or you're running through the woods holding a stick and pretending it's a gun, he pointed out you could sit in your sitting room with your best friends and actually play on a screen a level of football that you would never in a million years, unless you were David Beckham, be able to achieve on a phone. He used to get so exercised about it. Of course they're not playing outside. Have you seen the quality of the technology? And I know that. That's the point that Mart is making. And it makes some, it has some... And then Chris comes in with exactly the same point and arrives at exactly the opposite conclusion. He says it's obvious why they're unhappy. They've got the smartphones and the computer games that we never had. So, but it's not unique to UK, you see? It's not unique to the UK. And the fact that Romania has food poverty but not teenage unhappiness means that it's not going to be that either. So knowing what you know, why is it, and I'm going to say, harder to be a 15-year-old in the United Kingdom than anywhere else in Europe? Knowing what you know about 15-year-olds, and it's highly possible you were one once, knowing what you know about 15-year-olds, and knowing what you know about other European countries, why is it harder to be 15 here than anywhere else? Because this stuff really matters, you know. An unhappy child is a, I don't want to say an unproductive child, because that makes them sound like units of production, which sadly, of course, most of us are probably in our adult lives. But an unhappy child is not going to achieve as much as a happy child. An unhappy child is probably not going to do as well at school. They're not going to get the same results. And I know the pressure of getting good results might be one of the reasons for the unhappiness. That's why it's a phone-in topic. It's nuanced and complicated and unpredictable. But an unhappy child will be a lower achieving child. And that contributes to everything in the future, from their own personal well-being, health, happiness, through to the national health, happiness, economy. The more successful and productive a human being is, the more contribution they make to society. I don't just mean financial. I mean in every way. Community, society, togetherness. Stu points out it is, finally, one area in which we can realistically claim to be world-beating. Well, we're ahead of Europe, Stu. I don't know how we'd compare to much poorer countries. Part of me dreads to think, to be honest with you. So why is it harder to be 15 years old, or thereabouts? You know, we don't have to be absolutely specific on the age. That's just where the researchers have chosen to focus. Why is it harder to be a 15-year-old in the United Kingdom in 2024 than it is anywhere else in Europe? 0345 6060 973. And as a side order, because we didn't find time to talk about this on Tuesday, 500 children a day in England alone are currently being referred to the NHS mental health services for anxiety. That's more than double the rate of before the pandemic. And again, it's hard to think of circumstances or conditions that are unique to Britain or unique to the United Kingdom, isn't it? Which is why I think the question needs, or the answer needs, a comparison. Well, why is it harder to be 15 in the UK than anywhere else in Europe? Hit the numbers now, you will get through, okay? It's 10:15, 0345 6060 973 is the number you need, and we'll talk after this.
James O'Brien on LBC.
10:17 is the time. So there's this thing, right, when you do what I do for a living, and there's an unwritten rule that you, listening now, are not particularly interested in what I, sitting here, can see and do in this room. So if I start talking about the air conditioning, or I start talking about, I don't know, the state of the upholstery, or an unpleasant stain left behind on the desk by Nick Ferrari, the general consensus in the world of radio is that you are not interested in that. But I think you are interested in the fact that my phone lines are currently broken. And it is impossible, as many of you are telling me via WhatsApp, not via WhatsApp, via WhatsApp, it is impossible to actually get a line into the studio. And do you know how I know this? Shall I reveal a trade secret to you? The reason why I know this is because I just tried to phone my own radio show. It's August, right? The news agenda is a little bit thin. And therefore, the switchboard doesn't always explode at 16 minutes after 10 in the way that it does on almost every other month of the year. But when I see absolutely no movement at all on the grey and forbidding screen in front of me, then I am now, I think, confident enough to think there's something wrong with the system. There's nothing wrong with me. This is a really interesting conversation. I got millions of texts and messages coming in. There's something wrong with the system. There's nothing wrong with me. So I rang the number. And lo and behold, you can't get through. In fact, it says this number is unobtainable, which poses a considerable challenge to a radio phone-in host. Indeed, there's an almost Kafkaesque element to the prospect of hosting a radio phone-in with no phones. I'm reminded of the time, I've told you about this many times, I came perilously close following a story about the tiny number of people who had neither a mobile phone nor a landline. I came perilously close on the programme to inviting people to ring in and tell me what it's like not to have a phone. Perilously close. I was halfway through the sentence before I realised how absurd it was. 90 minutes after 10 is the time. So we will work with that, okay? And I will start with some of your answers to the question of why the 15-year-old in the United Kingdom is going to be sadder, or is currently sadder, why it is harder to be a 15-year-old in the United Kingdom than it is anywhere else in Europe. I don't know about this. Well, I don't know that I'll agree with everything that you say. Andy, you're very kind. Andy in Grimsby says, excellent, a 3-hour monologue, James. I'm just going to go and get my popcorn. We should be able to do stuff on FaceTime. Can we do stuff on FaceTime? Should we try and... So I don't know how this is going to work, but anyway. They've just turned it off completely now. What are you doing? Pressing... Have you literally just turned it off and turned it on again? Is that there are about 30 people in the engineering department and they've just turned it off and turned it on again. Is that, well, and how do I know whether it's working or not? Well, it's a phone-in show. Would you mind ringing me on 0345 6060973? Ideally, because you want to come on air and talk about why it's harder to be a 15-year-old in the United Kingdom than it is anywhere else in Europe. But we shall see. And now, of course, by turning it off and turning it on again, they've turned off my inbox. So just when I was poised to rely upon text and messages in order to provide some of your responses to the question of why it's harder to be a 15-year-old in the United Kingdom than it is anywhere else, they've now turned off my inbox, so I haven't got that either. Oh, here it is. What a relief. But I haven't got the ones that I just put to one side in order to read out to... This is just a disaster. So... higher depression because of higher societal expectations. So, Stephen, I like this. And this is where the peculiar nature of being British in 2024 kicks in. So you suggest that we have higher societal expectations here than we do, for example, in Germany or France. And they are cultivated, you write, through online platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and the rest, telling them how easy it is to become famous and rich, and then the quick realization that it's not so easy. And I don't know whether or not raising a teenager in France actually involves less likelihood of addiction to precisely the sort of platforms that Steve refers to, which is why, in the first instance, the people best qualified to answer this question are the people who can actually make direct comparisons between the UK and the Netherlands, the UK and Romania, Spain, Sweden, Italy, Ireland and Germany. A few of you pointing out that Mystery Hour is going to be an absolute hoot, isn't it? Unless we can get our phone lines working sometime soon. But in the meantime, I will have to deal with your answers to the question exclusively via WhatsApp and texts. The world is on fire, James. The water companies perhaps peculiar to the UK, Juan, pumping sewage into our rivers, threatening to charge us 60% more for the privilege. Food can be half rotten by the time you get it home from the shop. The NHS mental health service is overburdened. Children are expected to choose their career for life by the age of 16. Do you think there's a chance that we have put a tiny bit too much pressure on them? Yes, I do actually think that that's possible. This is from Annabelle. I'd say that whilst children in Estonia or Romania, as parents and elders are working hard to make life better, our 15-year-olds have grown up in a country where their elders actively voted to make things worse. Do you know, and you probably won't believe me when I tell you this, I was toying with the idea of banning the B word from this conversation, but I think that would be dishonest, to be honest. I don't think the average 15-year-old is sitting there specifically citing Brexit as a reason for their sadness. But I do think that some of the things that are making them sad may be consequences in part or in whole of Brexit. So indeed does Reese. No opportunities, James. Brexit locking them out of Europe. They can't afford a house. Wages are stagnant. Higher education is unaffordable. What are they supposed to do? I don't know. But what about that diagnosis is unique to or peculiar to the United Kingdom? Out of all of the things that you list, are there greater opportunities? Is it easier to buy property? Is being locked out of Europe really likely to contribute to a sense of malaise, a sense of sadness that sees us have the most depressed 15-year-olds or the 15-year-olds reporting the lowest levels of happiness, of life satisfaction in the whole of Europe? I don't know. And what I don't want you to do is project your own reasons to be not cheerful onto 15-year-olds. It's a question very specifically about 15-year-olds. And Simon suggests, and oddly enough, in The Guardian's reporting of this survey, the strange case of Kirsty Allsop earlier this week is cited, as Simon refers back to it. It was something you talked about last week, James, parental paranoia. It was earlier this week, I think. Parental paranoia. And I wonder how true that is. I wonder how true that is. Again, in the context of being peculiar or unique to Britain. So the Kirsty Allsop story, as you know, prompted a debate about parents who restrict their teenagers' freedom, the possibility that they're infantilizing teenagers. She allowed her 15-year-old shortly before his 16th birthday to travel in Europe with a 16-year-old friend, and some people went absolutely bonkers about it. It was a really strange and quite possibly a peculiarly British story. But again, if we're cosseting our teenagers more than other countries are, why would that be? What would it be about these islands that has created in recent years a level of paranoia that you don't see reflected in other European countries? It's 25 minutes after 10. My switchboard is currently not working. If you're just joining us, this is one of those very rare exercises in radio phone-in programs with no phone-in, with no phone. But I'm cool with that if you are. We can muddle through until the phones actually start working. Can we try and set up some FaceTime calls? If we can get, if you WhatsApp us on 0345 6060 973 and set, well, it's going to be too complicated to do that. Any word from engineering, Keith? Okay. Could they turn it off and turn it on again? Might work the second time. I know they've tried. Is that it then? Is that the full extent of the engineering department's contract? One thing I'm not going to do is mock the engineering department any more than I have already, because they are brilliant and they are absolutely superb and they keep us all on air, and they were the people responsible for me being able to. Have we got? Is that working now? Is that? Could it? No? Or are you ringing out on that one? Is that no? Okay. Hey. Sheesh. We're also going to talk to Will Guyatt, of course, our technology correspondent, about the... she could get Chris Moyles on, quite a few of you are suggesting, but that's the kind of in-joke that is probably not suitable for a radio phone-in programme that has no phones. OK, so the phones, I think, are ringing now. If you want to contribute to this conversation, 0345 6060 973. What I don't want to happen is for Roxanne and Emily to spend the next 10 minutes dealing with people who don't want to come on the programme but are just ringing in to tell us that they can actually get through to the studio even though they don't actually want to come onto the programme. But, be careful what you wish for. Are we going to take this all the way up to 10:30, do you think, without taking a call? It's not even a record, this. I've done monologues about Brexit that have got to 10:43 without drawing breath. But this is close to the first time that we have, not through choice, elected not to take any calls. Anyway, look, here's the question we're asking. On the day that we discover British teenagers suffer from a happiness recession on a level or a scale that dwarfs the same peer group, it dwarfs children of the same age in other European countries, I want a very specific focus on why that might be, what it might be about, and shall I say Brexit Britain, or would that be facetious? What might it be about Brexit Britain that has created a happiness recession that is not being seen in our closest neighbours, in the nearest countries, both in terms of geography and in many ways in terms of socio-economic status, all right? The number you need is 0345 6060 973. But I do want, and actually you'll struggle to get through now, not because the phone lines are broken, but because the phone lines are full. Jack's in Brighton. Jack, thank God you're here.
Thanks, Jez. Yeah, I just thought I'd come through.
I've never been so pleased to see anybody in my life, Jack. How are you?
Yeah, very good.
You could now, just to put you at your ease, you could be the worst call I've ever taken on LBC. I'll still be delighted to listen to you.
Well, yeah, don't speak too soon, James.
Yeah, fill your boots.
Big fan. I'm reading your book at the moment.
Thank
it's wicked.
Well, what a perfect start. There you go.
I just want to say, so when I was at university, I wasn't 15, but I got a chance to live in Spain for a year.
Okay.
And I did that, funnily, through the Erasmus scheme, which obviously we can't do anymore, which is a big shame.
Yeah.
But a different topic. But it was
yes and no.
Just to say that, obviously, the phrase kind of mañana was we lived by that when I lived in Spain. If you got past sort of 3 p.m., you sort of stop and be like, oh, well, I guess we'll do that tomorrow. And it was
There's
just
a work-life balance. I see this a lot. I spend more time in Greece than anywhere else in Europe. And siga, slowly. Just that idea that you can take your time a bit. You can breathe. You have a little more space.
That's it. And I think, like you said, a lot of the things that would trouble a 15-year-old are not unique to Britain. But I think we are, as a culture, we're quite highly strung. And we are quite... we're worriers and we want to make sure that we're being as productive as possible and we're finding partners and we're having kids at the right time. And I think as a culture, we are very just a stressed country.
Why?
As you say, I think there's a lot of pressure, a lot of expectation to find.
But
this
is generational rather than geographical? I think because I don't have the measures or the data to make the comparisons in other countries. But your generation is among the first that are likely to be less secure and less well off than their parents' generation. That perhaps creates a crucible of anxiety because mañana or siga or taking it easy is built upon the idea of the ship just bobbing along quite gently. If you feel that you're falling behind where your parents were, then that stress and anxiety is going to be compounded, I think.
It's difficult, isn't it? Like my dad was a slaughterman from the age of 16, and he brought up me and two siblings, and now you can't just have a job at the coffee shop on the corner and live I don't want to say fulfilling. That sounds a bit dramatic.
No, but raise a family in comfortable circumstances. Yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. So the job is just to keep your own head bobbing above water. The notion of career or longevity seems increasingly unattainable. And I was looking at the A-level results of my daughter's peer group, and the to get into universities now. I don't understand this. This is the conversation for a different day. You need to get the kind of grades that would have got you prizes at my school just to go to a decent university. I don't understand how that's happened. The proliferation of A's and A stars and the rest of it. Thank you, Jack. It is 10:31. This is no longer a radio phone-in with no phones. Thomas Watts is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 10:34. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Do you want to know something ridiculous? Even after having to fill pretty much half an hour uninterrupted because of technological problems in the studio, I just came back from the news there thinking, I might just take a few minutes to set my stall out, share some thoughts, talk about what's coming up later. I'm incorrigible. It's pathetic, frankly. I don't know why you put up with me. Let's get to the phones as quickly as possible. Samila is in Nelson in Lancashire. Samila, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very well indeed. What answers have you got on this one?
I don't know if there are answers.
Thoughts?
I was just talking to the lady and I was saying that you're talking about unhappy 15-year-olds.
Yes.
I've got one. There's two things that came into my mind when you started talking about this. Firstly, I was thinking about what's the age of the parents that these 15-year-olds belong to.
Yes.
So if the parents, in my view, if they're quite young, say if they're in their early 30s, late 20s, and they have a 15-year-old...
They're not going to be in their late 20s, are they?
Well, 29.
14 when they had the baby. I mean, there will be people in that cohort, but they're more likely to be late 30s than late 20s.
So I was thinking if they are at that age where they're still, where they're quite affected by the politics of this country, and they just, maybe the children are just projecting their parents' misery, and if they've got financial troubles and they're just struggling generally, it just depends on what kind of family they come from. I'm in my late 40s, quite financially secure. I take my son on holiday 2 times a year. He's not that miserable,
because he follows your lead. You know, as you say that, Mike texted to say your scope is too narrow. Millions in this country are unhappy, and children are very good at picking up parental vibes.
Yeah.
Governments who pitch people against each other have dominated for 14 years. The last bit I don't know about. This is why I'm keen to make more comparisons. I'm just back from France, he writes. People are at peace with themselves there. I don't know that last bit's true from following the French news.
I was also thinking that these kids that are 15 now were about 10 and 11 when COVID was around.
Yes.
And those are really crucial years. And I think back to when COVID happened, it was the end of year 6, which is the end of primary school. And all these children did not get a goodbye party. They kind of just fell out of primary school and were dropped into high school. They had no transition days. They had no way to kind of ease in and have that kind of happy...
I mean, other countries certainly had lockdowns of schools, but you're thinking that possibly they handled them better.
Yes, I do think that they handled them much better. I can just remember all my son's friends kind of like floating, going, are we going to have a goodbye party? What's going to happen? Where are we going to go?
Yeah.
And not even knowing which schools they're going to go to. And one of the things was when they did get to the new school, they were still in their year bubbles, so they couldn't really meet with children from other years, and it was 18 months of bubbles that they were in, and there was a certain schoolyard that you had to play in, you couldn't go to another schoolyard. They kind of suffered, it affected the social skills, the communicating with other people.
I mean, you're making a strong case, but as you make it, I'm just refreshing my memory on what other countries did with regards to school closures, and we were far from unique. France did the least. France shut schools for about 10 weeks, but it was 35 in Italy, 28 in Germany, and 27 in the UK. So unless someone else can provide us with evidence of how they handled it better with regards to the mental health of that cohort, I don't know that this is going to make the cut, Samaya. Because they did it in the other countries as well, and we're trying to measure why things are worse here than they are in the other countries where they did the same thing.
I was also thinking that our government in the last few years has completely decimated all kind of youth projects. That's true. Youth centres, anything that is about children developing themselves has been decimated completely. I think my son does better, and his friends as well, because I pay for a lot of things that he does. There's nothing for children to do that is free. So if we go back to the parents that are
struggling,
not as financially well off and struggling a bit and politically kind of cross, yes, those children aren't going to get the kind of facilities that mine does.
And then couple that with the lockdown point, and maybe it works better because you had the alternative outlets, the alternative. Thank you for that. Did you ring me last? You rung me before?
I've spoken to you a couple of times. Yeah.
Did you not get something? I thought I sent you something.
No, I didn't get anything.
I'm getting you mixed up with someone else. Forgive me, Samila. Couple of things you said. Someone else in Lancashire it must have been, but I can't send things to everybody. It is 10 coming up to 10:40. There it is. That idea that peculiar to the UK, 14 years of austerity, closing things. Do you remember I used to be quite dismissive of people talking about youth clubs if we were talking about knife crime or stop and search or whatever it may be? But about 3 or 4 months ago, we did a phone in and it all slotted into place. And I suddenly thought, it's not just a throwaway line. Just because lots of people say it to me when we have conversations like this doesn't mean it's boring. It means it's true. And she's right. And that is perhaps peculiar to the UK, just less to do, less fulfilling lives. Jacob's in Durham. Jacob, what do you think?
Hi, James.
Hello.
I called you last week about a similar topic, and you asked me why I thought it was so much worse now than it had been in the past.
Yes.
I'm 18 now.
Okay,
and if
perfect.
I had to put my finger on one thing, it would be there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a number of ways. The previous caller had already mentioned lack of youth groups, lack of youth provisions. And I think that governmentally, on the level of the council and on the level of the, higher up the government, there's not a sense of the youth existing as an investment.
Yeah.
I think that they...
neither of us are in a position to make comparisons with other European countries, are we? I'm just checking. I'm not suggesting for a minute that your analysis is wrong or not worthwhile, but I don't know what opportunities are available to a 15-year-old in France, for example.
Well, it's partly due to opportunities, but also partly to do with how...
Oh, no, don't do that. No. Oh, boy. Sam's in Birmingham. Sam, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
God, that pause killed me, Sam. It wasn't your fault. There was a little glitch on the line. I thought the phones had gone down again. Carry on. What would you like to say? What do you think it is?
Well, I think it's austerity, James. I'm 19, personally. First in my family to go to university. And I had some support left over from the Labour government, luckily. Okay. So I got a child trust fund.
Oh, crikey, yeah.
So by the time I was 18, I had some support. I was able to buy my first car with that money and commute to university. But I think, kids today, youth services have been cut by 90%. Many kids don't see a future because of austerity. They don't think that the government supports them. And I think, because their parents have a negative view of politics, that's all they've experienced all their lives, really.
And the siren voices encouraging their parents and therefore them to blame all of their problems on people who don't look like them or people who've come here from somewhere else is going to make everything worse, not better, isn't it? In that context.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So we can't make comparisons with other countries yet, but if you were to take the UK in isolation and look at things that are happening here that might explain why 15-year-olds are so sad, the big political picture is both. At the same time, it's quite an obvious answer, but it's quite a detailed answer as well. Of course, I mean, why wouldn't you be sadder than previous generations and sadder perhaps than other countries when hope is at a premium? Hope is under constant threat.
I think it's because as well, a lot of decisions have been made without young people. In Scotland, young people have been given the vote, for example, at 16. I know the conversations about 15-year-olds and making the comparison.
15-year-olds will be 16 very soon, Sam. Some of them even today.
Yes, so they've got the vote in Scotland, and they were, I think, if I recall, they were able to vote in the Scottish referendum, or I think I may be misremembering, but I think they were able to. And I think they're able to vote in national elections now as well at 16.
So just the level of political engagement. I don't know if the figures break down according to the division between England and Scotland, but in terms of feeling seen or engaged, you've got to be onto something there. And of course, what are we talking about politically? What is most of the media obsessing about? Pensioners. Again. That's got to be part of what Sam is describing. Well, turn your radio on. Oh, pensioners, it's terrible. Pensioners. 14 years of having their tummies tickle. And hey, I got no beef with you. And I think some of the people who are losing their winter fuel payment should not be losing their winter fuel payment. But if you're trying to work out why 15-year-olds are the saddest in Europe, perhaps the political obsession with pensioners, largely because they are more likely to vote Conservative or right-wing parties than anybody else, might explain why 15-year-olds feel dispossessed and disconnected. But there you go. So there is the media at the moment obsessing about winter fuel payments for pensioners, the massive majority of whom can afford to lose that benefit. But what about the 15-year-olds who've lost infrastructure, opportunity, hope? Oh, yeah, get rid of them. And if you talk about possibly giving them the vote, then you just portray them all as being feckless idealists. 10:45 is the time. Something remarkable has happened. I don't know if you remember when we were talking about Keir Starmer's speech on Tuesday, wasn't it? That's why I'm getting confused. We had Monday off, didn't we? So we talked a bit about rot. And my friend Gary, who I'd had a drink with the previous evening, he was listening and he came in, he's a decorator. He came in with a decorating analogy. He said the rot analogy works very well, James. First you have to detect the rot, then you have to remove it. It will look worse before you start rebuilding again, but pretending that the rot isn't an issue will never resolve the problem. It's a long-term repair, as opposed to a quick botch job. Now, guess what Keir Starmer said yesterday? Like, literally, okay, this is word for word. The whole point of this exercise is to make sure that we can bring about the change that we need. If you don't clear out the rot and you don't do it properly, you've got nothing to build on. And therefore, this is a vital step. If you're redecorating your house and you want it to look much nicer, it's usually better if you strip it down, get rid of the damp and the cracks first, rather than painting it in 5 minutes, thinking it looks much better, and by Christmas, the cracks and the damp have come back. So there you go. Gary's analogy is now prime ministerial policy. 10:46 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
10:48 is the time. Phil's in Germany. He writes, that lady has a very good point, referring back, I think, to Shanila. Germany has community sports clubs in every town, city and even village where children can do a huge variety of activities and sports for a small monthly fee. In the UK, it all has to be paid for through the nose. Children in Germany are also a lot more independent from a much earlier age. Most primary school children in our community cycle or walk to school. This all helps build the confidence and social skills needed to cope with the stresses and anxieties of modern life. Quite a few comparisons coming through now. I mean, I'm not going to open Idiot's Corner today because it was such a strange opening to the programme. But if you are thinking of getting in touch to say that you don't agree with the research, it's just silly. It's like saying you don't believe in the common cold because you've never had one. This is detailed and authoritative. Authoritative. That's not how you say that word, is it? Authoritative. It's authoritative. It's like quantitative easing. Is it quantitative? Do not adjust your radios. So don't do it. It's just silly to do that. And a little bit rude, to be honest with you. But hey ho, on we go. Monica's in Reigate. Monica, what do you reckon?
Oh, yes, hello.
Hello.
Bit nervous.
Why? Why?
First time caller.
Oh, don't be ridiculous. Everything will be fine. We're all friends here.
Now, my mother is Dutch, so I spent quite a lot of time in Holland,
Yes.
and I've had loads of Dutch family. One of the big differences is seeing kids all over the place on their bikes, no adults in sight, cycling to schools. I don't know where they're going, but they're there without adults.
Yes.
And the environment, the built environment, is designed to be as safe for them as possible. You know, cycle lanes, pedestrian areas, parks. There's very few parked cars, for instance.
Okay.
And just the other difference, I think, is in Holland is very strong family bonds, and the family is really important. And you know, people spend a lot of time with their extended families. So, two things.
So why don't
think,
we
yeah.
then? Why don't we?
Why don't we what?
Spend more time with our extended families because we're a bit more atomised as a population. We've moved more for work, or we don't like them. I don't.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm maybe too Dutch to. Although I live this, you know, but family's very important to me as well, and so I don't really know why. Sorry about that.
No, I mean it made. I'm just trying to look for things that are specific to the UK.
This whole freedom thing is that, you know, walking to school on your own. My kids, they walked to school on their own from when they were 8. Hardly any of the other kids did.
There is a level of paranoia that is perhaps, but why would it be peculiar to the UK? Because of 24-hour news being, I bet you have that in other languages. You have that.
I remember when it started. When the Soham
When did it
murder
start?
happened.
Was it Soham or Madeleine McCann? Perhaps
Well, I
a
think
combination
it was
of both.
murder. Maybe yes, yeah, but there was some fear that kind of came into this country then that just isn't there in other countries, or certainly not in the Netherlands.
Listen to this from Daz, who's in Norwich. You speak about parents infantilising teenagers. My mum has been trying to persuade my sister not to go away on holiday in a month's time to Monaco on her own with her son because the world is, quotes, much more dangerous now and anything could happen. She's absolutely worried sick about them travelling alone. My sister is 48. Her son is 15. My mum watches GB News all the time. It's her main source of information.
Well, I always remember when my daughter had her 16th birthday party. She's 25 now.
Yes.
And I had, on the way back, I had 3 girls in the back who were either 15 or 16. And none of them had ever spent an evening in their own house on their own. And I said to them, well, what would happen? They said, a burglar might break in and attack me.
Gosh.
I'm thinking, they're 15. They're almost adults.
So this is probably media. This is probably tabloids trying to terrify people all the time.
I don't know why. My own daughter.
It's a business model.
Babysitting other children since she was 14. Yeah. And she ran a little business for a while doing cake baking parties and stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, and this is parents who think they're being protective and being good parents who are actually contributing to, almost certainly contributing to the anxiety epidemic that we're looking at and possibly, almost certainly contributing to this happiness recession as well.
And how much fun do you have if you never go out with your friends?
And how much more likely you are to be less happy if you never have fun. Johnny has one answer to one of your questions, Monica. He says, Holland is such a small country, you can't get away from your family even if you wanted to.
Well, that may be true.
It's 10:54. Alan's in Fulham. Alan, what would you like to say?
Well, my experience of Germany is always that everything is on merit.
Right.
There aren't any private schools.
No.
It's up to you. If you're good, you will be backed by whatever funds are needed. You've never got a sense that someone has got a start on you by the checkbook of his parents. However good you are, you will go to the top.
So a true meritocracy then.
Absolutely.
Did you live there? And what are your experiences drawing on? How did you live there, work there, or just go on holiday?
Well, I was sort of as a late teenager.
Yeah.
More or less treated as a third son by a German family of friends of my family.
Oh, how nice.
They always wanted a third son. And when they talked about how are the boys doing, they say, well, Erwin has got a new restaurant and Dieter has got a big promotion at work and he earns double the salary. And Alan has now been top prosecutor in Lancashire and blah, blah, blah. And I was sort of treated as a third son.
Oh, that's lovely. So the idea is that your effort... merit is a funny one. Your effort and your talent will be rewarded.
Yes.
Whereas a sense in this country, perhaps increasingly in recent years, when we've seen how some complete puddings have risen to the very top, based entirely on privilege, some of the most talentless politicians imaginable have ended up in the biggest jobs of all. I don't think we should mention any names, Alan, but Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson spring to mind immediately. So the idea that your effort and your talent will be rewarded creates optimism.
Yes, and there was a secret. You see, Adenauer had some help. General LeMay said to Adenauer, you're not using the best talent. And Adenauer said, what on earth do you mean? And he said, you've got half the world's best managers in your country, and you're not using them. They're doing Mickey Mouse jobs as servicemen in the American forces. A lot of them are qualified with master's degrees and better in the management colleges of the United States. They'll work for nothing rather than do the jobs they're doing bored stiff.
Well, I'd say if they felt properly engaged and properly excited. I like that, Alan. Petra adds to the point you make. From Germany, we have low-cost sports clubs, music, orchestra. Minimum yearly fees can be as low as €15. It's mostly funded by volunteers organising fetes and the like. Members work for free and the proceeds go to the club. It makes everything accessible for everybody. Plus, we have great and frequent events with music, food and drink, which can be great for the community. Priya is in Northwood. Priya, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. How are you?
Very well.
First-time callers are definitely very nervous.
Why does everyone say that, Priya? It's unless you're a sort of weirdo, you're gonna get a very warm welcome.
Who knows? We'll find out.
Well, let's find out.
So I was 15, 16 when Brexit was happening.
Right.
And my dad, I don't know if you'll like this word, but is a massive Ramona.
Okay.
So I went on a lot of the anti-Brexit marches at the time.
We prefer the phrase vindicated realist on this programme.
I'll pass that on to her.
Good.
So I think that I was definitely highly aware of the political situation at the time, and I also saw how deeply it was affecting him. And I think I would go to the point of saying that he was quite depressed about it.
Yeah.
And I was really aware of that at the time. I think also hearing politicians like Jacob Rees' pieces saying things like people who were anti-Brexit were elitist. I think as a 15, 16-year-old, that was really bizarre for me to hear because I didn't feel like I had an elitist life.
No, but if you couple that with what Alan was just telling us, and you see someone like that flourish and rise to the very top of our political tree while being A, not very bright, and B, not very nice, you marry the two things together, and it creates an obstacle to optimism. You think, what's the point of doing my best? Or what's the point of trying hard? Because I'm never going to get the glittering prizes that are reserved for people with plums in their mouth. And equally, they've damaged my future, and they're not being held to account for it.
Exactly. And I think especially on that point of damaging my future, my dad really, I guess, emphasizes things that would be different. And I think that obviously at that time we didn't really know exactly how things would be different. But for example, like the Erasmus scheme, studying in France was something that I was interested in, and I was trying my best in my GCSEs at the time in French. so that I could go on to do that. And I think that it's a very different situation now.
Yeah, and these are, I mean, everybody's experience is going to be different, but you're specific to your 15th year or your 16th year. These are all pertinent points, and there'll be a lot of people in similar situations. And the sad thing is, if you're going to be completely holistic about things, is that the people that caused it aren't happy either. It's highly unlikely that the children of all the people who voted for Brexit because they thought that they were going to be better off, or they thought that the waiting list would be shorter, or they thought that there would be less immigration. If you've sadly polluted your children's minds with those kinds of ideologies, you all the things that you thought you were going to get because you believed what Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-'s Pieces and Ian Duncan Donuts and David Davis and the rest of them told you, they're going to be miserable and cross as well. So nobody wins. It's lose-lose. At which point the instruction to get over it begins to ring a little hollow, doesn't it? It's coming up to 11 o'clock.
James O'Brien on LBC.
3 minutes after 11 is the time. So I was in a beer garden yesterday, and since you asked, to celebrate my eldest, can you believe, if you've been listening to this programme for a long time, you would have heard me on air when my eldest child was born. Some of you very kindly congratulated me at the time. Do you remember what happened? I got picked up by a minicab at Hammersmith Hospital, and the driver didn't let on that he'd recognised my voice. It didn't happen to me very often back in those days. And he rang the presenter who was doing my cover while I was off on paternity leave to reveal that my daughter had been born. So it was announced live on LBC before I'd even told my mum. It was quite extraordinary. And I mentioned that because you, like me, will reel from the fact that she's off to university in September, and we had a little celebration last night about the fact that she'd got into her first choice university. And I noticed, and it's a funny thing to notice, but there was an ashtray on the table, which I just moved. I was only having a ginger beer; it was still quite early, but we moved the ashtray off the table, and I was sitting by the barrier, if you like. At the bottom of the beer garden there's a canal, so you know it's lovely. It's a waterside beer garden, and I'd not noticed it before. I don't go that often, but I'd not noticed it before. There were a lot of cigarette butts. There were a lot of fag ends, as we used to call them. There were quite a lot of cigarette butts, which meant that the people who'd been smoking, rather than use the ashtrays, which were liberally available in the beer garden, in the outdoor area of the pub, they would quite understandably really just toss it over the glass barrier, and they're enough to make me think, oh, that's unpleasant. And I don't know whether that's relevant to this conversation that has been started by the front page of the Sun newspaper today. I mean, fair play for the headline, the butt stops here, but oddly, when I read that the government was contemplating a ban on smoking in pub gardens, I had two thoughts. The first thought was, that's a bit over the top, isn't it? And the second thought was, I'd be surprised. I'd be quite surprised if that actually happened. But we're going to conduct this conversation on the presumption that it will. All right, we're going to presume that the leaked documents that the Sun has apparently seen are, in fact, policy rather than conversation. We're going to look at this as something that is, I would say, under consideration. And for my money, I still think unlikely to happen. But we're going to have the conversation about whether or not we want it to happen. Because would you hate me if I said I don't know? I don't smoke. And I don't like smoke. And when you don't smoke, you notice smoke a lot more than you do when you do smoke. So even outside, and you don't really encounter it indoors anymore, but even if you're eating, particularly if you're eating actually, outside, which is obviously not a particularly commonplace experience for the average Brit, I believe it is called al fresco, it spoils your meal. If someone at the next table sparks up, doesn't it? Does it genuine? Is it not an age thing, this, is it? This would be true of everybody. It's a particularly noxious fume. I'm not a massive fan of vaping either, but I don't come across that as often, which means it's not as noxious. Because there's bound to be people vaping in the pub garden, but it's not putting me off my dinner in the way that a waft of Benson and Hedges or a waft of Silk Cut making its way across my chicken Kiev is going to actually put me off. But I wasn't actually going to talk about this until I heard the news.
James O'Brien on LBC.
He warns that this is just going to add to their burdens. I find myself wondering whether it's actually quite a bad idea. An outdoor cigarette ban will be a hammer blow to struggling pubs desperate to pack out their beer gardens with punters. Well, will it? I don't know, you see, because I'm probably more likely to spend a bit more time in a beer garden if nobody else there is smoking. I'm certainly more likely to have a meal if nobody else there is smoking. But I don't know. And I wonder how much of a conversation we can have about the liberty or the libertarian element of this as well. In that the politics of it is questionable because it just triggers every single nanny state accusation, the kind of lazy, knee-jerk journalism that is largely responsible for us having the saddest 15-year-olds in Europe routinely foist upon us. The nanny state allegation is quite clear here as well. The problem with smoking in a beer garden, though, is that it takes away my freedom to enjoy my meal without a lungful of your smoke, doesn't it? So I think this is a really interesting one. I think this is a little bit more nuanced, perhaps, than first glance allows. We are being encouraged by the usual suspects to get cross about this because somebody is telling us what we can and can't do. The massive majority of us don't smoke, right? Smoking tobacco, massive majority. It's very niche these days. It's also, I think, quite stigmatised. Correctly, it kills people. It even kills people who don't smoke, although happily the sort of incidence of passive smoking has been enormously reduced by the legislation that's already been brought in. So here is the encouragement from the sort of lazy right wing of the British media to get cross about something that if you stop and think about it, it's probably only going to affect you in a positive way, unless you think that your right to spoil my dinner is somehow more important than my right to enjoy the dinner that I'm paying for. So just give me what you think on this one. I find of all the things I've reached that stage, you've probably noticed in the last few days because I've done it a few times. What was it yesterday when I was talking about music? I was talking about music streaming a couple of days ago, and I don't think I've ever sounded older. Just that sense of marvel at the idea of being able to stream anything you want. I can't really make many music recommendations to my children because Spotify's beaten me to it. You know, I caught one of them listening to the Smiths the other day, and I thought, I was going to introduce you to the Smiths. We better not have the Morrissey conversation yet. Turns out they knew about that as well, because they're permanently online. But the things that you tell your teenagers from your youth sometimes seem unbelievable to them. So do you remember what our clothes smelt like after a night in a club? That's insane, right? You'd spend a night in a club, and you could smell the next one. You could smell your clothes from across the room, especially if you didn't smoke. So it wasn't your smoke that was soaking your clothes. It was somebody else's smoke. And that was completely normal. You go into pubs that had yellow ceilings. They'd been painted white, but they had yellow ceilings. So commonplace was the miasma of tobacco smoke everywhere you went. And it was completely normal until suddenly it wasn't. So I want to know what you think about this one, because part of me says, yeah, of course my right to enjoy my pint without having to breathe in your secondhand smoke trumps your right to smoke in the beer garden. Provide a little area, like a little bus shelter, or that thing out of 2000 AD. Do you remember that thing in 2000 AD where they have a guy, it's called something like a smokatorium, and everybody in there, no, you're not allowed to smoke anywhere else. You can't see anyone. You walk in there, it's so smoky. Correct and complete stigmatization of smoking. So you can do that. You can have a little spot where you won't affect anybody else. But for the rest of the garden, I think it's a good thing. So here's where I am, right? This is why we're going to talk about it this hour. This is my problem now, which turns it into your topic. I think it's a really good idea when I think about it from my point of view. And I still think it's a good idea when I think of it from your point of view as someone who wants to ruin my dinner by blowing smoke all over the garden. But oddly, if I take a broader view of society, our freedom to do things that are bad for us because we like it, I think that's a crucial freedom. In some ways, it's the most crucial freedom of all. Otherwise, you really do start living in a potentially Orwellian environment. And the damage it would pose to the hospitality industry. You wouldn't be allowed to smoke outside football stadiums, nightclubs, or on restaurant terraces. Even some small parks would see it banned. And I want strong opinions on this. So you might not ring me often. You may never have rung me before. But this one really floats your boat. You can't believe that in 2024 we're even entertaining the possibility that people should be able to smoke in a space where your children can play. I really want the kind of passionate anti-smoker to explain to me why this has got nothing to do with civil liberties or the freedom to do things that are bad for you. This is about creating a society in which your bad choices don't result in bad outcomes for me and mine. Smoking's disgusting. I know it's also quite pleasurable, but it's simultaneously disgusting. So banning it from pub gardens is potentially politically difficult, and yet the more I think about it, the more I think that this is definitely the right thing to do. Should we have a look in Idiot's Corner? Here we go. Vanessa is in Idiot's Corner this morning. She says, okay, and then you're not allowed to have a pint outside either. Let's all live in a Muslim state. So you think I exaggerate what's happening to people who are spending their lives on social media? The idea of banning smoking. We banned smoking inside pubs, Vanessa. I hope this doesn't come as a major shock to you. We banned smoking inside pubs without banning beer. Isn't that incredible? Also, is smoking haram? I don't know that smoking is necessarily haram. Certainly shishas seem to be very popular in sort of Middle Eastern catering establishments. Are we going to ban those as well? I don't know. What's the health impact of one of those sort of hubba bubba pipes? So there's the question. I've got a feeling that this is actually a really good idea, but I've got a suspicion that it might actually be bad politics. And it is at this point that I ask you what you think. Phone lines are open and the switchboard is working. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 17 minutes after 11. Jake, mate, come on, give your head a wobble. We didn't ban beer when we banned smoking because the government makes a massive amount of money off alcohol. Jake, the government made a massive amount of money off tobacco sales as well, but they still banned it because it was bad for us. There is a case to argue that if alcohol was invented now, it would be criminalised because it causes so much harm, but you're never going to get that one over the line. The smoking ban, and oddly, it was the last hour where I wanted to do all of the comparisons with other countries, but of course it works here as well. Wayne's been in touch. In Sweden, he tells me, there was majority support for the introduction of a ban, which was then extended to include outdoor seating in bars and restaurants, as well as public places such as playgrounds, bus stops and train stations. So phone lines are a bit full at the moment, but let me add another dimension to this conversation, which is it's being sold to us as, down with this sort of thing. I'm not sure it will work. If they do bring it in, I'm not sure it will actually have a negative impact. Surely most people, maybe smokers are a bit like people who like speeding in their cars. They're very loud, very vocal, very overrepresented on a certain type of radio phone-in program. But actually, the silent majority, the quiet sensibles, like you and me. All right, I'm not very quiet. Not necessarily very sensible either, but you take my point. We would mostly approve of this because why wouldn't you? I demand the right for my children to be inhaling tobacco smoke while eating their ice cream in the pub garden or sliding down the slide just over the way. I don't know. It's 11:18. Stephen is in Melbourne, in Lincolnshire or Australia?
Australia.
There
James,
we go.
Australia.
Carry on.
So, for once in your life, you're hitting the nail on the head. So, in Australia, we brought in the non-smoking ban in the pubs.
I think that's a bit unnecessarily rude, Stephen.
No, I'm sorry. I'm being cheeky.
Okay,
sorry. Forgive me.
Because I got tempted then to cut you off.
Oh no! Don't do that.
Well,
anyway,
why not?
So,
if you can be rude to me, I can be rude to you.
Well, no, you can. You can. You're absolutely
I can, but
right.
I'm going to be bigger than you, and I'm going to let you carry on.
Fair enough. Point well made. Okay, so in pubs in Australia, I'm in Melbourne, so in Victoria. So they brought in the rules originally where they stopped the smoking in the pubs, same as the UK.
Did it kick off much? Did it kick off much?
No, it didn't. It was brilliant. It was so my background. I ran pubs in Australia for 10, 15, 20 years. And I was running pubs as we were going through that. The big pubs in the city in Melbourne, while we were going through this transition from being a pub where everybody smoked to a pub where no one smoked. So it didn't have a negative impact on trade. So the first thing that happens is your pub internally becomes nicer and more pleasant to be in because all the things you mentioned earlier, there's not as much smoke, the place looks better, it's more attractive to people.
Did you smoke yourself? Did you smoke yourself?
Sorry, so I did actually smoke myself, and I quit about a year before they started bringing these.
Because Keith was a DJ. Keith was a club and pub DJ, and back in the day, he was working 6 or 7 nights a week. And when they brought the smoking ban in, he got withdrawal symptoms because he was so used to spending 3, 4, 5 hours a night breathing in other people's cigarette smoke that he suddenly noticed he was getting itchy and irritable and almost craving to go out because that's when he would get a nicotine hit.
That wouldn't surprise me at all because you're in an enclosed space. Smoke was just wafting in your face and everything. It was horrible. Back in those days, it was horrible. You made a point earlier on about fag butts being thrown everywhere. That's one of the worst things in a pub that you used to have to do was clean up after all the dirty ashtrays. The point I wanted to make was the next stage that they brought in Melbourne was to stop smoking in any area, whether it be inside or out, where food was served. So the little alfresco dining areas outside, your rooftop bars, whatever.
Yes.
If you served food, you did not allow smoking. So at the time that was coming in, I was running a relatively big bar in Melbourne, and we were renovating and we were building a rooftop. So this beautiful big rooftop, which had capacity for a couple of hundred people. So reasonably good sized bar. So about a year before it came in, whenever we opened this, we made the choice to ban smoking on the rooftop while it was still legally able to smoke. So we stopped it. No negative impact to trade whatsoever. The place was packed out, and all I would get was people coming up to me going, I think it's great you're not allowing smoking up here.
So what did the smokers do? What did the smokers do? Do we know?
Well, they just go downstairs and go outside and
but that's the point. There'd have to be somewhere they could do it, wouldn't there? And also, it would encourage people to cut down or give up as well, wouldn't it? So there's no downside at all.
Look, what you'll find is the industry bodies will tell you this is going to be a disaster. Now, it will be a disaster for some people. Right. It will be a disaster for some pubs. There will be some pubs that will lose trade over this, and this will, particularly in the current climate, will push them over the edge. But the vast majority of pubs, if they have a good offer, and this is probably key to it, it's about the offer you got in your pub. If you've got a good food, beverage offer, creating a really nice space, whether it be indoors or outdoors, that is attractive to people will only enhance your trade over time. You'll find people that wouldn't go to the pub. Like you said, you don't want to sit down and someone cracks a cigarette on the table next to you and it wafts across the table. My partner would be the exact same. She hates smoke. She hates being in an environment where there is smoke. She wouldn't go to pubs or she wouldn't go to outdoor areas where there's lots of smoke going on because of that. So
she becomes more likely to go into the right. Yeah, and that's just from someone in the hospitality business, albeit that wasn't a very hospitable opening to the call. but I don't know, and I think it's the job of the hospitality spokespeople or the trade bodies to resist change that is possibly going to have a negative impact upon trade. They've suffered enough, goodness knows, from increased costs, staffing problems, Brexit related issues, all of that. So of course you should push back against it, but whether or not they need to be doing that is a question that only people who've been through a similar process in other territories will be able to answer. For example, Stephen. It's true that about Keith. He just told me that. So, like a DJ, you know what a DJ is. Probably, do you still need DJs? Do you still use, but it's all, anyway, it's a conversation for another day. So he would be in a pub 6-7 nights a week, a club or a pub 6 or 7 nights a week, spinning his platters, the wheels of steel. And there was so much smoke, that environment was so smoky that he was addicted to nicotine despite never smoking. A lot of people of my age will think now of the late, great Roy Castle, who was a jazz trumpeter before he became a very famous television presenter of a superb show called Record Breakers. Record Breakers! And he famously died of lung cancer despite never having actually smoked in his life. But he had been a trumpet player, so he wasn't just breathing in smoke-filled clubs. He was really breathing in smoke. He was sucking in enormous lungfuls of smoke, and as a consequence of that, it was believed he got lung cancer. So, the realities of this are inarguable. 24 minutes after 11 is the time. Tony is in Stamford Hill. Tony, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Hello. Pleasure to speak to you.
Oh, thank you.
Just like
see, that, just let me pause you there. And see, that's how you open a call to a radio programme, isn't it? You see, we've got a bit of mutual kindness, respect. None of this, the first time ever you've said something. You just don't need to do that. It's so unnecessary. Carry on, Tony. You're my favourite.
Yeah. Pleasure. Well, just like yourself, I've been a radio presenter, DJ, club DJ back in the 80s, 90s in Wardour Street, and there was a basement club, and I had to come out every night and wash my clothes and have a shower before I could even go to sleep because I absolutely reeked of cigarettes.
Yes.
Going further, I drive past the world famous jazz cafe every other night on my way home, and there's like 100, 200 people outside there. I don't know, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. And having said that, further on, I've just come back from Croatia, which is somewhere I've never been to.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw how clean the streets were, how clean, everything was so clean, so spick and span, and the restaurants, and they've got these canopies everywhere. But everyone seems to be enjoying themselves, having a good time, and there's not this, so I actually think you've hit a nail on or you've hit a nerve with certain people, but I think you've really hit the nail on the head.
Well, in the actual beer garden, though, anywhere food is served, that would be a really good way of doing it. So that wouldn't include outside football stadiums or outside nightclubs. But why should I have to walk? Why should we have to walk through clouds of noxious smoke?
Well, I'm still a DJ, so I still do these pubs. I do a lot of pubs rather than bars and restaurants now.
Sure.
And I do agree with you. Maybe they should be given a little bit of space somewhere in some corner. But the attitude of a lot of these people, they do throw the cigarette over the fence or lob it anywhere rather than put it in the ashtrays provided.
There's another dimension to this conversation. But I think this will actually win over any waverers. Nigel Farage has written a piece for the Daily Telegraph under the headline, "I'll never go to the pub again if outdoor smoking is banned." That's fantastic, right?
Absolutely.
Any pub in the country will finally be safe. Of course, unfortunately, he's not got a very long or proud track record of actually keeping promises or telling the truth, but that would be any waverers thinking that this might be a little bit over the top. It would remove entirely the prospect of ever bumping into Nigel Farage in a pub forever. What club on Wardour Street did you? It wasn't the Brain, was it?
No, do you remember Jacqueline's Bananas?
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Called Crackers?
No, vaguely. I was more of a techno head by then, a house music head by then, but you were catering for a more sophisticated clientele.
I don't know about
Thank you, Tony. 11:27 is the time. Chris is in Hornchurch. Chris, what do you reckon?
Yeah, hello, mate. Nice to be on a first-time caller.
Welcome.
So, hallelujah. So, listen, I've been smoking since I was 11 years old.
Well, I need to know how old you are now to really get the full measure of that statistic.
Okay. Well, I'm a young 57-year-old.
That's 46 years, that is, Chris.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And the way it started was my dad used to smoke the Gold Virginia roll-ups indoors.
Yes.
So you're watching your dad smoke and you think, well, that's cool. And you think that's normal and acceptable. And then you go and play in a park somewhere, there's older kids there, and they're smoking a cigarette. And you say, give me a 2 on that. So you start having a drag on a cigarette, right? And now you think you're cool. Now you think, oh, yeah, I'm all growing up now. And it just flowed from there.
Yeah.
And I think the smoking ban in a garden, absolutely spot on. Because look how the law's changed, right?
So where will you go then? Where will you go for a crafty smoke?
Well, out of sight.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right, you take a school, right? You never see the teachers pop out for a cigarette with all the kids around them, do you?
Not anymore, no. You would have done once.
You would have done once, but that was a teacher would just get sacked on the spot for doing that.
Yeah, it's true. And you know what I always remember, Chris? I think you'll like this. When they brought in the smoking ban, there was some really quite hard-hitting adverts, including one that had like a cut-off of an arm. And they used cigarettes to represent the cholesterol. So it was as if the whole of your body was getting clogged up as a consequence of smoking. But rather than picturing the cholesterol or the fat or whatever it actually is, they used cigarettes and they got the Advertising Standards Authority got loads of complaints from people saying that they hated that advert because it was really putting them off smoking.
Yeah. But, you know, like, if I go and buy a pack of cigarettes in Tesco's, right?
Yeah.
It's all behind
other
the shutter.
supermarkets are available. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's all covered up
All
now.
behind the shutter, all in black boxes, because they want people to see it. And frankly, let's take a beer garden, right? Why should a family sit there, a mum and dad with their kids, and people are puffing a fag?
Yeah. You.
And the kids can see it, and they think, oh, that's cool.
I might have a crack at that. Why have you not knocked it on the head? Have you tried?
It's a hard one, isn't it?
Of course
I do smoke and I vape.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, I'll tell you what happened to me before I stopped for 12 months.
Oh, yeah?
Years ago.
Well done.
I had a friend who didn't smoke, and that inspired me, and I went cold turkey, and I stopped smoking for 12 months.
Yeah.
And what happened was, in those days, you could smoke in a pub. So it was Christmas time, and I'm in the pub with all my mates, and I thought, oh, go on, it's Christmas, have one.
Oh.
So I borrowed a fag off someone. I went all dizzy. My legs went heavy.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're having another fag. And before you know it again, you're buying tea.
You're back again. Nicotine.
You just got to cut it away. All right, if you're a smoker, you can't be seen in public.
I like it. And I like your kind of recognition of the fact that it's not doing you any favours, and therefore you don't want other people to fall under its evil spell moving forward, even though you managed to break that spell for 12 months and then fell back again. Thank you, Chris. You brought me a little late for the news. I was hanging on your every word. Quick line from Paul, though. Will Farage never going to the pub again be in the same manner as his leaving the country if Brexit was a disaster? Almost certainly, Paul, actually. Here's Thomas Watts with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 26 minutes to 12, Mystery Hour on the way, and we are planning to speak to Will Guyatt about the arrest of the Russian fellow that runs the Telegram platform and the question of whether or not it is likely to impact upon Elon Musk's stewardship of Twitter, or X as he likes to call it. It's an interesting story, this. He's been charged in Paris, Pavel Durov, and the idea... Do you know, one of the very first phone-ins we ever did technology-wise, or generational change-wise, which I am obsessed with. I've been obsessed with generational change since I was very young, 20 years ago I started doing this job. And we talked about who has jurisdiction over stuff that comes into your home via the internet. And it was a bit of a mystery hour question at the time. But it has become more acute, a more urgent question in the last 2 years than perhaps any point in the last 20. Isn't it? So, dark web stuff and access to disgusting images and things like that, who holds responsibility for that? As far as I can tell, the Telegram founder's defence is that he can't be held responsible. The owner of a platform can't be held responsible for what appears on a platform. Could you imagine if the owner of LBC tried to argue that? Or could they argue that you can't be held responsible for what a caller says before I manage to press the dump button? If they Ofcom would disagree if it went out. So you are held responsible for everything that happens on your platform. But I just thought I would find some of the nuances, some of the detail of this story, and Will is very well placed to talk us through it. Because Twitter itself, or as most of us still call it, is becoming close to unusable now. If you are relatively normal or sane or not obsessed with the idea of focusing entirely on ethnicity when discussing any subject under the sun, whether it's criminality, policing or football. And that's largely because of the people that have managed to buy blue ticks. So they dominate your replies, which means there's no point looking at your replies anymore, which means you miss all the nice people. And, the pleasure of blocking wears off when you're starting to get repetitive strain injury from doing it. And I noticed Gary Lineker said exactly the same thing. He's gone from having millions, well, he still has millions and millions of followers, but there's no point tweeting anymore because people who get their pleasure from, I don't know what it would be really. It's like people with halitosis who get their pleasure in life from breathing all over people. including complete strangers, the people they profess not to like, if I'm not really interested in what you've got to say and you don't pose a threat to me or mine, or you're not actually agitating to my country to make my country a worse place to live from a position of relative power, I'm more than happy to completely ignore you. But these people are the opposite of that. They're obsessed with just breathing their fetid breath all over people who would much rather never hear anything from them in their life. And they are Musk's people. That's what it has been turned into. So it's an intriguing combination of circumstances, isn't it? But it is going to see the people who've helped turn Twitter into a big platform. It is going to see most of them move on and get replaced, presumably, by sort of little Stephen Yaxley Lenin fans and whatever else grows up in the darkness. 11:37 is the time. Sorry, that was a bit of a departure. Let's get back to the beer gardens and the question of smoking, and my suspicion that the massive majority of people will welcome this, that it won't actually have a negative impact upon the hospitality trade, and that attempts to use it, increasingly desperate right-wing media, to use it as a stick with which to beat Keir Starmer, they'll probably fail as well. But I could be wrong. Lucy's in Buxton. That is a lovely part of the world.
Hello.
Hello, Lucy. What would you like to say?
Hello. I'm a first-time caller, by the way.
You're very
really
welcome.
Nervous.
That's only me.
I know. I listen to your show all the time.
Thank you.
I think you're great.
Oh, well, let's just hope that Kidderminster get a result against Buxton later this season and everything will be hunky-dory.
Oh, right. I see. Are you with Buxton or Kidderminster?
Kidderminster, Lucy.
Oh, right. Well, then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll teach you a lesson. We'll teach you a lesson.
No, you won't.
Yes,
no, you won't.
We'll teach you a lesson.
Yeah, you will.
I was in Buxton not long ago. That's got some very nice beer gardens. Yes, I was.
Oh.
I love that part of the world.
Right. Which pub did you go to?
I can't remember. I stayed in a very nice hotel in between. Oh, I'm not going to remember now. What's just north of Buxton? What's the next town up?
Either Whaley Bridge or Chapel.
The Whaley Bridge, between Buxton and Whaley Bridge. I walked to Buxton. I walked up the old railway line.
Oh, nice.
It's beautiful, isn't it? And so so the pub I would have gone to was just on the river there. What would that have been called?
I don't know.
Well, why are you asking me what pub I went to then, if you haven't got the facts at your fingertips?
Oh, I don't know. I'm all nervous, that's why.
All right, well, I'm sorry. I was trying to put you at your ease and it's backfired horribly. What would you like to say about beer gardens?
I don't agree with you at all on this.
What? Oh, we were getting on so
I
well.
know.
Gosh,
I know, but I normally agree with you on everything.
Oh, well, that's no fun.
So I'm quite sort of disappointed.
Go on. Why not?
Because I think most people who go to pubs, most of their trade is drinkers. And it's been a huge shock to them.
Well spotted, Sherlock.
What?
I said, well spotted, Sherlock.
I know. I'm very bright like that. No, I know. But I mean, alcohol drinkers.
You don't get many people going to the pub to buy a car, do you, Lucy?
Not really.
Not really.
Generally.
Not
no.
yet.
No.
Anyway, carry on.
But I think people who sort of drink most of the beer are far more likely to smoke than the people who. Do you know what I mean?
No, not anymore. They banned it indoors ages ago, and the pubs have survived.
I know, but I just think, I don't know, I sort of feel sorry for the smokers, really.
Well, that's
fine. We've got to have somewhere.
They can go somewhere else.
No.
I don't think you've thought this through, Lucy, to be honest.
I have.
Are you a habitué? Are you a habitué of beer gardens? No.
Yeah.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Don't fib to me.
Well, I'm not. I mean, I used to smoke and I used to drink, and I don't do either now.
Well, there you go.
Well, not really, because
you can't have a completely theoretical, anecdotal theory being offered up against all the evidence we've had from everybody from publicans right through to smokers who agree that it should be banned in beer gardens. What about the little children? Won't somebody think of the children? Why do you hate children, Lucy?
Children. I don't. I love children.
Well, why do you want children to be breathing in these disgusting fumes while they're trying to eat their fish fingers?
Well, I don't know. I don't think pubs are good for children anyway.
Beer gardens? Families in beer gardens?
No.
It's glorious. It's one of the great British traditions.
McDonald's.
Oh, well, then, yeah, you can't smoke in McDonald's. Can you smoke in McDonald's gardens? The outdoor bits of McDonald's? I don't know. Lucy, I wish you well. How was that? Did you relax a bit as the call went on? Not really.
Yeah, sort of.
I'm trying to find the place I stayed at just near Buxton, but I can't find it in my inbox. It must have dropped out. It'll come to me shortly.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you next time.
It it might have been. No, I can't remember either.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you the next time. What's the bookshop in Buxton? The old antiquarian bookshop. Are you sure you've been to Buxton, Lucy? In Buxton?
I live in Buxton.
Well, you say that. I don't know if you could. What's the lovely antiquarian bookshop called?
You mean the one on the corner?
No, the other one.
Oh.
Anyway, you don't even know the name of the one on the corner, do you?
No.
We must do this again. 11:41 is the time. Buxton is a beautiful, beautiful part of the world, although I grant you that Lucy hasn't done a very good job of bigging it up for the uninitiated. That was probably my fault. Gerald's in Nottingham. Did I ever tell you about the time I went to Nottingham? I'm joking. Gerald, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Great show. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, mate.
So, 22nd of August 2014, 10 years ago, I lost my older sister, to lung cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
She smoked 40 a day, and she was given 6 weeks to live. I think she lasted about 10. Oof. So I've seen firsthand the impact of cigarettes. Now I'm a father of 3. I just think that this is a great policy. Yeah. I go to the playground with my 3-year-old. There's someone smoking right next to my daughter on the swings. I just don't get that. So I think we need to make smoking
there's an ignorance to it, isn't there? There's a strange, because a few people have made this point about sitting there and people come and sit next to you and light up. It doesn't seem to cross anybody's mind outdoors that the smoke is still obnoxious. And
it's because there's a perception that the cigarette's going to rise into the atmosphere, but it doesn't. It lingers. And, I used to work in a bar years ago, and I used to come home stinking of cigarettes. And I just think that we need to fast forward in life and make it not socially acceptable to smoke around others that don't want to. Simple as.
Yeah, and that's why I think that any attempts to turn this into a sort of nanny state stick with which to beat the government, if indeed it does come to fruition, which isn't certain, although I think the Sun story today is in good faith. I think it's a genuine leak. I don't think it will land. I don't think most people are going to respond to it by sort of feeling aggrieved or feeling, because a tiny proportion of people who smoke in pub gardens anyway. So what you're relying on is the people who don't do it but think that everybody else should have the right to. And I don't think that's a very big constituency, because the right for you and me and our children to sit and enjoy a meal without breathing in somebody else's smoke seems to me to be bigger.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I've got friends that smoke, and they're on the other side of the camp. They think, but I think the problem is people don't want the government to tell them what to do. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, exactly that.
But we'll make a choice. And I just think that this is a positive choice for positive outcomes. So if my friend Danny needs to go outside of the front of the pub to smoke, off you go and come back when you've done with your cigarette.
Yeah.
Simple as.
And do you know, you've just made me have a thought there, Gerald, which I've not had before. People don't like being told what to do by the government, but they do like the government telling other people what to do, don't they? So I genuinely think that. I've never thought of that before. It's like that line about policing. Everyone likes the police until they're the ones being policed. So I quite like the government telling you what to do, telling you that you can't smoke. I tell you what I really like. I like the government telling you that you can't drive at 100 miles per hour up and down the road, or that you can't drive with 6 pints of Stella inside you. I quite like the fact that the government has told you that there's loads of things you can't do. And it starts telling me what I can't do. Do I feel a little bit aggrieved? I don't know. I can't think of anything I do that the government does. Tell me that I can't do. A lot of people are talking about cannabis. And of course, that is also a problem, including in pub gardens. But it would be easier if you're not allowed to smoke at all in a pub garden. I don't think people are going to give up cigarettes and start sparking up spliffs, as I believe the kids call them, or doobies, because it will be smoke per se that becomes bannable or banned. So I think it would actually cut down the amount of cannabis smoke that's wafting around the garden of the dog and duck as well. It's 11:45.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12 minutes to 12 is the time. It's Thursday, Mystery Hour. Thank goodness we got the phones working again. What on earth would have happened to Mystery Hour if the phones didn't work? And if you've just tuned in and you're wondering what on earth I'm talking about, the phones didn't work for the first half an hour of the programme. So do you know what we did? We phoned Will Guyett and had him on like reserve, like in case of emergency, break glass, and there's Will Guyett. waited to talk to us about something technological, although we had already booked him to talk to us about something technological, because I'm really interested in the charges that have been brought against the founder of Telegram, an encrypted messaging platform in France. The platform's not in France, he is in France. And then we didn't need to speak to Will Guyatt because the phone line started working again, so we pushed him back to the slot that he was originally booked to speak in. And here he is. What's the story? Morning glory.
This is an interesting story. Yes. I have no idea where this is going to end up with Pavel Durov. We always think of tech leaders being interesting people, James. Yeah. But let me tell you, Pavel Durov has 100 children. I'm going to start there. That's the first bit of information I'll give you.
Christmas must be a nightmare.
Yeah, just imagine. And he's now in a situation where he appears to be up for 12 different criminal charges in France as the basis of leading this platform. And it's the first time this has ever happened. He has residency in France, and he also is now in the United Arab Emirates. He is a Russian, and he's a Russian who left Russia in 2014 when he refused to hand over loads of information to authorities on who was using the service. Now, if you've never heard of Telegram, it's a platform that has about 1 billion users. Most people think it's fully encrypted and is therefore safe for them to do ridiculous things on and post whatever they want.
Right.
It's not actually fully encrypted. It's one of the weirdest myths that's ever been perpetuated. Everybody on that platform thinks they're completely safe when they're posting. They are not. Oh. However, it's been used by lots of people in lots of different countries, and the challenge they now face is it would, in European law, there is an understanding and a feeling that they're not doing enough to communicate with authorities. It's being used in illicit transactions by organised gangs. And there's also a complicity in organised criminal distribution of child sexual abuse images.
And drug trafficking and money laundering and sundry. So the charge would be aiding and abetting, which is absolutely fascinating. And it makes it very easy to understand why Elon Musk has got his pants in a bunch. Because if you own a platform upon which crimes are committed, the idea that you are aiding and abetting those crimes could conceivably extend to inciting riots.
Yes, but I cannot get my head around why the French representative of Meta and the French representative of X has not yet been called for a similar situation. Because if we're looking at this fairly, I don't think there is anything worse shared on and this is a damning indictment of the modern world.
Yes.
There's nothing worse on Telegram than there is shared on the other platforms. Given that Elon Musk has basically told the European Union to do one and that he'd see them in court, you're quite surprised that there hasn't been a similar situation where the representative in France has been called in.
Because the platforms you reference are bigger as well. So if the offence is urgent, then the greater offender would be the bigger the platform. Do you want to speculate on that at all? Do you want to wonder out loud why it might have?
Well, I'm intrigued.
Because they've got to start somewhere, haven't they, if they are serious about addressing this kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But why start with the least consequential of platforms? Meta has billions of users in Europe. X definitely doesn't have billions of users in Europe, but it's talked about by lots of people. And in terms of press coverage, it over-indexes. It's talked about all the time in places for mostly being a cesspit in 2024. But nothing happens with it, James. Nothing. Those organisations don't have anything happen to them. Elon Musk can bait the EU. There are some theories.
Well, they're taking action against Twitter, aren't they? Twitter X. There are legal wheels turning.
There are legal wheels turning.
But they haven't arrested an individual. Could it just be because he was in France? Oh, because you're saying he could have arrested the Nick Clegg equivalent in France.
There are leaders.
Mark Zuckerberg's representative on Earth, as it were.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what doesn't make a great deal of sense. There is potentially, depending on what you believe, the political motivation here, but he's not pro-Russian. Pavel Durov has not supported the Russian state. And for a period of time, Telegram was banned in Russia. It does get used now by a load of crazed Russians like Dmitry Medvedev, the former president, who's suggesting every 2 days that the UK should be nuked, etc., etc. It's used by a lot of lot of people in Russia, and it's one of the most used platforms.
This is the one bit of the story I do know a little bit about. There's some debate about whether or not his estrangement from the Kremlin was either authentic or permanent. So the Russian element is interesting. I'm intrigued by your why him and not the others argument. Could it just be an organ grinder monkey issue, so that if Elon Musk landed in Paris tomorrow, possibly they'd feel his collar as well?
I'd love it if they did, because Elon Musk has argued.
But I'm just trying to solve your riddle. He is the head honcho, and they had the chance to get him, which they haven't got with Zuckerberg or Musk yet.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think that's likely the reality. He was there at the right place at the right time, and because he had residency in the country, they could probably lock him up. But for me, I'm intrigued to see where this goes next, James, because is this a start of Europe saying enough is enough? You social networks have to do more, and you have to take all this stuff seriously. Or is this something else that's politically motivated? There allegedly are suggestions of conversations between Macron and Durov in 2018, where he tried to get Durov to relocate Telegram to Paris and various other stuff. But that's all hearsay, really. I'm keen to see if this is... I always thought this was going to be the year of big tech versus big law, but now we've kind of got one step up from that. It's not lawyers fighting over who's in control. You've actually got a state trying to lock up the leader of a company. So it's going to be interesting to see what occurs.
And it will hinge upon the statement, in a sense, that Durov has issued, saying that Telegram abides by EU law. But this bit, it is absurd to claim a platform or its owner are responsible for abuse of that platform, which is not as clear as Durov would like everybody else to believe. I mean, just to draw a tiny parallel with what we do, if Ofcom don't have criminal sanction, the broadcast regulator, but we would seek to demonstrate to Ofcom that we had done everything we could to mitigate or avoid the breach of their regulations. The idea that we can't take any responsibility at all for what goes on this platform, that's absurd.
Yeah, it is. And it's also, I always find it really interesting when the number of people sort of step forward and say, oh, this social network's trying to cancel X, Y, or Z person. They're privately run organizations. They can set whatever rules they like. But also, I don't think they can back away when somebody says they're not doing enough. Yeah. The fact that independent experts, for example, are saying there is this organized criminal distribution of child sexual abuse images on that platform, and various embedded European organizations recognized as world leaders in trying to get this stuff off the internet cannot get proper conversations with people at Telegram, should tell you all you need to know about how seriously they're taking their responsibility as a platform.
And one wonders finally, Will, whether or not all of the hard of thinking social media users currently bleating about free speech and Orwellian nightmares realize what it is that they are actually supporting.
Exactly, and you've nailed it on the head. And for all of those people, James, who think it's a free speech, it's a free speech empire. Elon Musk puts non-disclosure agreements on pretty much everybody that leaves his company. So much for Mr. Freedom of Speech.
Well, Guy, beautifully put. And thank you as well for allowing us to ride roughshod over your schedule this morning and being there behind the glass, lest we need to break it in cases of emergency. I'm grateful to you. It is just coming up to 11:58. Time for at least one more call. Christine is in Ilfracombe, another beautiful part. Hello, Christine. Sorry to keep you. How are you?
Fine. Oh, I'm fine. My heart has stopped banging so much now, so that's good.
Okay, calm down a bit.
But that was probably because I just had a cigarette.
Topical.
Yeah.
So, beer gardens.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but it's really hard to do to police or whatever, because when people get drunk, which people do in pubs, they're just going to want to smoke, and you'll be having arguments and fighting or whatever, so...
So you're talking about your average weekend, are you, Christine?
I'm talking about my average weekend when I was about 18, so I haven't drunk for 18 years.
But I see. But you're a committed smoker.
But I smoke, yeah.
Well, how did they police it indoors? If they can police it indoors, they can police it outdoors, can't they?
Well, they won't know, will they? Because you know what's happening now with all the pubs closing and stuff like that. I can imagine the landlord saying, well, I haven't got time to go around and say, put that fag in the ashtray, you know.
Yeah, maybe. I think it'll police itself. You'll probably have the occasional miscreant.
It won't, James. It won't, honestly. It won't.
It will. It will.
It won't, because I always go on swings when I'm smoking. Who goes on a swing?
Pardon?
Next to a child. That guy was saying that he had his child on a swing.
Yeah.
And somebody was smoking next to the child.
Yeah, the person was pushing their own child in a swing probably while having a crafty smoke as well. You see, I don't know.
On the swing.
Well, that also happens.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is people should just be nicer and more considerate.
Can't argue with that, but you're a smoker.
Yeah, but I go to a pub to have food.
Yeah.
And afterwards, after you have a meal, I say, I'm going to have a cigarette now, lovely.
Yeah.
Me and my husband will go outside, and if there's people there, we'll go as far away as possible as we can from the people.
Be more Christine.
Without even thinking about it. You know,
Be more Christine. Be more Christine. But unfortunately, until everybody is more like you, we're going to need a little bit of stick instead of carrot, and the discouragement will have to be a little bit more robust. They've managed it at airports. There's loads of places where they've managed to successfully implement a smoking ban indoors and in other countries outdoors. But time will tell. Two things, Christine. Number one, whether it is actually going to come to policy fruition or legislation fruition, and number two, whether or not it is policeable or implementable if and when it does. That is the end of the programme proper. We move next onto the improper part of the programme, which is Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. If you have a mystery that needs solving, a riddle that needs unravelling, or a question that needs answering, well, you know what to do.
James O'Brien on LBC.
3 minutes after 12 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where the phone lines are humming with questions awaiting answers. Let me remind you some of the terms and conditions, or T's and C's. You can win a game. You can win a Mystery Hour board game, which is a lovely bit of kit. It really is. A number of people who've turned up to book signings with the not inconsiderable box under their arm. You know the crosses I bear. Do you know how hard it is to sign a shiny box with a Sharpie pen? I have to then wait for the ink to dry before I can move on to the next person awaiting a signature on their book. That's how much I care. But anyway, you can win a box, a Mystery Hour board game in a box, a shiny box, by being my favourite contributor of the week. The full terms and conditions for the competition are at lbc.co.uk. You can find out more about the game, the Mystery Hour board game, at mysteryhour.co.uk. Is that it? Is that all I have to say? That's it, isn't it? There's nothing else? T's and C's, mysteryhour.co.uk, lbc.co.uk. I'm not going to explain how it works. There was a question last week. I can never remember this. Two things I can never remember, right? Most weeks I think of something that I intend to ask on Mystery Hour. Most weeks I think, I could do that on Mystery Hour. That's a good one. And then by Thursday, absolute blank. It's like jokes, isn't it? Some people have got archives of jokes in their memory banks. Some of us cannot remember jokes for all the tea in China. I'm in the latter category. Same in Mystery Hour. I think of a question most weeks. By the time it comes to Thursday, I can't remember it. And the other thing I can never remember is the one from last week that was brilliant and didn't get an answer. What was the brilliant question last week that didn't get an answer? God, so it's just not. There was one really good one. I mean, they were all good, but there was one that I really wanted to know the answer to, and we didn't get it. I'll see if it comes to me. That's not a mystery. Don't ring in with that. Just drop me a text on 84850 or WhatsApp me on 03456060973. Don't use up a phone line to remind me of what it is that I've forgotten from last week that was my favourite question. Shall we start? Will's in Wapping. Will, question or answer?
Hi, James. Question, please.
Carry on.
My question's about ambulance sirens.
Oh, yes.
And why do they have, as far as I can tell, 3 different tones?
Are you sure that they do? Go on, yeah.
Well, I was walking along the other day and an ambulance went past and there was kind of a long, sustained wailing siren. And then there was a kind of rhythmic whooping. And then there was a very short...
Like a woo, woo.
Frantic.
Woo,
yeah.
Woo.
And then there was kind of a frantic kind of...
Yeah, but it was all in one go. It was one siren. With 3 compartments. Compartments? What's the word I'm looking for?
So then, I'm
I don't know, sections.
No, it was something a bit fancier than that. 3 distinct compartments, probably. No, anyway.
Compartments.
So what is the question then?
The question is wherefore the compartments?
Well played. Because it is, it invades your consciousness more effectively, as you are proving by both noticing it and noticing it to such a degree that you've subsequently asked a question about it. If it just went woo, 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 it wouldn't invade your consciousness in the same way it does when it goes wah, woo, woo, brr.
Yeah, true, yeah. But I mean, does an air raid siren do that? Did they do that back in the day?
Didn't need to do that with an air raid. You don't need to get out of the way of an air raid siren, do you?
Yeah. Oh, well, you might have answered it.
Oh, I doubt it. Timbres, textures. God, there's some fancy word. Cadences. 3 distinct... someone's just texted me ghost cats. Is that the question from last week that I couldn't... Why have you texted me ghost cats? Anyway, segments, distinct phrases, segments. God, I've got some wordsmiths out there. So why does the ambulance siren go 3 distinct...
Yeah, or maybe more than
phases?
3. But I heard 3 within the space of...
Yeah, we'll do it. And did you get out of the way?
Yeah, I was well out of the way.
Good. It's on the list. We shall find out for you. Thank you, Will. If obviously, the number you need to provide answers to any of the questions that you hear remain the same. Why do ambulance sirens have multiple sounds in one snatch, as it were? So it's not like they've got one siren for going to the hospital, another siren for coming back, or do you see what I mean? It's like that is a really horrible sound. I think I've probably answered it, but I need it to be confirmed by an actual expert. James is in Bristol. James, question or answer?
It's a question, James. Can I just say I love your show? The question is about onions. I was having this conversation with my friends that people always talk about crying when they chop onions.
They do,
but for the most part, it seems to have been onions are actually okay to chop. Apart from you get that one rogue onion, just 1 in 100, that will actually devastate you.
It's more than no.
It's just I think you're a complete wuss if you generally cry.
But it's not. It's a physiological response. It's not a question of wussiness any more than if I hit your knee with a hammer and it goes bing. That wouldn't be wussiness, would it? It's a reflex response. It's a physiological response.
No. Okay. So what we were thinking is that. And we haven't Googled this, so it still counts. We were thinking that what has happened over time is we've bred out the stinginess.
I don't know. I don't recognise the premise of your question.
Well, it's just basically, it's just
no. Onions have not become less tear-inducing over the years. They just.
I think they have.
Do you really? Let me just check something. What do you think? Roxy, do you find onions have become less well, you're only about 24, aren't you? How are you going to compare it? When did you start cooking? Do you think onions have become less perhaps you could ask your grandma. Have they become less tear-inducing over the years? They have. You think they have? Really? Do you keep your onions... Hey, you know me, I'm nothing if not a Democrat. Do you keep your onions in the fridge?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's not that then.
No.
Well, this is very,
and then the other.
What's the actual question?
Theory was,
you can't just come on and share theories. What do you think this is? What's your actual? Speaking of that, was there a bloke in Nick's advert who rang me earlier this week complaining about ringing Nick? This John in Liverpool, was it? Ringing Nick with exactly the same call and then getting into the advert. We've got to raise our standards a bit on this radio station. This is absolutely. But you can't just come on and share your theories. What's the question?
The question is, do you get just 1 in 100 onions that is way more pungent than other onions?
All right, and if so, why?
That was the actual question.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like padron peppers. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Padron peppers, James.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I don't know what a padron pepper is.
Oh, you've got to say so, you see. You can't. You've got to say, sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about, James. But the way you said yeah gave away the fact that you should have just blagged it. So padron peppers, apparently, this sounds like a tongue twister, this. Peter Piper's padron peppers. Padron peppers, apparently Padron peppers, 1 in every sort of 20 or 30 will be hot. Will have a chili hotness to it.
Oh, okay. In that case, yes. Then I was right when I said yes. Like, even though I didn't know what I was agreeing to.
Exactly. We will make a phone-in host of you yet, James, with your ability to camouflage ignorance as enthusiasm. It's on the list. Are onions like Padron peppers? Is the question we've ended up with. Is it like 1 onion in 20 or 30 that actually will emit the chemicals that cause your eyes to water? And I mean, just as a side order of onions. Is he right? Have they got less tear-inducing? I don't think they have. But I could be wrong. Alec is in Leicester. Alec, question or answer?
Hey, James, it's a question.
Carry on, Alec.
So my daughter's getting to that age where she's starting to ask questions where I have to think about the answers now, and she came up with a good one.
Is she 23? Is she 23, is it?
3.
Go on, then.
And I'm already struggling. And the question was, why do people put X's on the end of their texts? Obviously, it means kisses, but where did that come from? The next question was why. So she's in the why stage. So it's why. So my question is, where did the X turn into kisses?
I think oddly, it's quite a British thing, you know. It
is, yeah.
It's not like massively international. I think if it's come up before, the answer, as you'd expect when you think about it, is Christianity, a cross, like as a sign of blessing. But then when did it become a kiss remains a question that no self-respecting 3-year-old is going to consider answered by some loose allusion to Christianity, are they?
She's a tough cookie.
There you go. I mean, isn't she just? Do you know her negotiating powers are currently at their peak?
Absolutely. I am nothing but a peacemaking negotiator.
So when did an ex start representing a kiss? There we go.
Indeed.
So, do you want to mention her name so that she can listen back to this later? Go on then.
She will do. Eva.
Eva. We will find out for you, Eva. Or we won't, but we will do our very, very best to find out for you. Thank you, Eva. That's a brilliant question. 12:13 is the time, and 3 questions on the board. Room for more. Tony's in Romsey. Tony, question or answer?
Hi, James. I've got a question for you, please.
Carry on, Tony.
During lockdown, we seemed to befriend a little blackbird. We called him Snowy, and he used to feed out of our hands.
Are you serious? How long did it take you to tempt him to feed out of your hand?
Not long, really. You just kind of flicked it on the ground first, and he got closer and closer.
But what, over a period of days, weeks, months, years?
Probably weeks. No, days probably. It didn't take so long.
What do you mean probably? You were there, I wasn't. So you put some food on the patio and he came along and pecked it.
That was a long time ago,
And then I know, but then
it's a different world.
And then you put some food in your hand and he landed on your hand and pecked the food out of your hand.
Yeah, and he's done it every year since.
How delightful. Carry on.
And anyway, so I make this bird food out of lard and peanut flour and various bits and bobs.
Okay.
And he'll take it away, and then he'll take it into the garden and just dip it in the soil. And there's I'm making it as hygienically as I can, and he's just dipping it in the soil to get bits of dust and sand on it, and then he takes it away to his nest. Why do they do that?
This is gizzard.
Yeah, maybe.
Why are you laughing?
But it's...
You're not supposed to laugh more.
I like the word.
It's his gizzard. The blackbirds have gizzards.
Yeah, but they don't do it with the raisins. If I give him raisins, he'll put 7 in his gob, and he'll take them over to the nest. And still make a noise when he flies with 7 in his mouth, which is another weird one.
Raisins have got little gritty bits in them already, haven't they?
Maybe, I don't know. I didn't think that deeply into it.
So, what's his name again? Snowy?
Snowy, yeah.
Oh.
I feed a pheasant as well, but he doesn't do that.
A pheasant? You feed a pheasant?
Yeah.
How long has the pheasant been visiting you?
A number of years, but he went missing when we went on holiday for a week this year, so I don't know where he's gone. That was Bert. And he brings Flo, his wife, in as well.
He didn't go missing, did he, mate?
Well, that's the nicest thing I can say.
I mean, we know
I didn't eat him.
No, well, we had a brilliant question about why pheasants are so stupid once. I don't know if you heard it.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, but Bert's not that stupid. Because if you survive the first season of shooting, then you actually begin to develop instincts that mean you're more likely to survive than it. So like crossing roads and things like that. The reason why pheasants seem so stupid is because they're bred to be shot and then they get shot. So they don't have time to learn anything or to sort of pass on their lessons or spread, their anyway. So why does the blackbird dip his food in the soil before eating it?
Yeah.
I like it. Oh yes, you're wrong. When he comes back, when you say he comes back every year, are they not? Do they hide? Do they emigrate? Do they migrate? Blackbirds?
I don't know, but in the breeding season in spring, we have loads, maybe a dozen in the garden.
Maybe he's feeding the chicks with the raisins back in the nest, but the food that he's dipping in the soil is for him.
No, he does go off with that as well. Or she, he, yeah. It's a male, yeah.
Yeah. All right. How can you tell?
Males are black and females are brown.
All right, that's a fairly reliable technique. It's 12:17.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 19 minutes after 12. You're listening. Well, you know who you're listening to. It's Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not available anywhere else on your radio dial. So far, we would like to know, why is the ambulance siren so multitonal? There you go. Why do only some onions make you cry? And are they becoming fewer and further between than what they used to be? When did a cross or an X become a symbol for a kiss? And why does Tony's blackbird Snowy wipe its food in soil before eating it? If you know the answer to any of those, or you have a question of your own, or you know the answer to any of the questions that haven't been asked yet, but you won't know whether you know the answer to any of the questions that haven't been asked yet, unless you're a time traveller or psychic. But when they are asked, and if you do know the answer to them, then the number you need will be the same. 03456060973. Stephen's in Sutton. Stephen, question or answer?
Got an answer.
Come on then.
Answer about the ambulances.
Oh, yes.
So ambulances have 3 different tones they use when they're driving along, same as most other emergency service vehicles. So you'd have a short tone, which is like a neenor, neenor, neenor,
yes,
as you're coming up to a junction to try and alert people that you're coming up to said junction.
Yes.
You would have a longer tone, which is for when you're driving along the road. So instead of the quick neenor, it's like a neenor, neenor kind of vibe. That is so then people can tell basically you're just driving down a road normally.
Yeah.
And then finally you'd have a third tone, which would be different to both of them, for when you're driving in convoy with another vehicle, so then other drivers can tell there's 2 vehicles rather than just the one.
Blimey. Why then do we think that Will encountered all 3 in one go?
Because there probably was 2 vehicles driving in convoy. The lead vehicle would have had his long tones on as he was driving down the road, got to a red set of traffic lights, put on the short ones to get through the red set of traffic lights, and the vehicle following it probably would have then gone through would have had the other one on. Or you have to cycle through all 3 in one go. So he could have quickly, or they could have, I should say, go through it all 3 in one go. But you can't select them. You have to go through one at a time.
Okay. Qualifications? Firefighter. And you have different sirens for police cars and fire engines, but you would recognise them all. The average punter probably wouldn't initially.
Yeah, you can notice them. I think the more you're around them, the easier it gets, and you can be nerdy and go, okay, fine, I can hear the fire engine, or no, that's an ambulance, or that's a police car. But
so how does it work? Do you press a different button?
Yeah, so normally in a fire engine, there's a pedal by your foot. So most fire engines that we would use are all automatic. So you use your left leg to cycle through the tones by a pedal on the floor.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a fairly comprehensive answer. I thank you for it. Have a round of applause on me.
Thank you. Cheers, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Love it. Jill's in Beckenham. Jill, question or answer?
A question.
Carry on.
Why do we call our children kids, which are baby goats? We don't call them kittens or puppies.
But how do you know what came first, the chicken or the egg?
I don't understand that.
Well, how do you know we didn't call our kids first?
Oh, I see. Well,
and then goats copied us.
Well, why? Then the question would have to be why do we call goats babies the same as ours?
So why kids for kids and not I quite like the idea of pups.
Why not puppies?
Puppies is nice, isn't it? Puppies is... What's a baby beaver called?
A set or no?
No, that's where they live. There's beavers are in the news a lot at the moment. There's a beaver up the road in Ealing that I'm very keen to go and visit. And I was reading today about beavers being reintroduced into the rivers in Devon, Jill. Not far from Ilfracombe, where our friend, our earlier caller, smokes like a chimney all day. I shall put that on the list. Why do we call kids and not kittens? Kids, goats, children, humans. Thank you, Jill. Jan's in Alicante. ¿Cómo estás?
Hola, buenos días.
Gracias.
I've had 4 car accidents.
Oh yes.
And when I've had the 4 accidents,
I'm sorry
it
to
all
hear this.
seemed
Yeah,
like
yes.
it was like in slow motion.
Was it really? You're not imagining that?
No,
Good
no.
Lord.
The first one I was in a Mini when I was about 15, and we got hit from the front and the side.
Right.
And
Blimey.
the glass, I felt as though had the seatbelt on. I was like going forward and coming back, and the glass that was falling in on top of me, it was like it was all in slow motion. As I say, and the 3 other accidents I've had have all been similar. So I don't know if it's just me or it is the norm. Why does your brain make you feel like that?
I mean, to begin at the beginning, you're quite unlucky.
Yes.
Are you driving normally, or are you just an unlucky passenger?
No. I was driving in 2, and the other 2 was someone else. But I got out.
Wow.
The first one, I broke my collarbone and everything.
Right.
But the others, I got up and walked away, which was totally amazing. Because one of them was across 2 carriageways, upside down, in a ditch on the A13.
Well, I can see why you emigrated. Are the Spanish roads safer, do you think? Are you a bit... No.
Oh, yeah, no, there's nothing. Where we live, you're lucky if you see another car. We can drive for about 30 miles and not see another car.
That's delightful. I'll find out for you. I mean, you've had it. I can't really query your research because you've had 4 accidents. So if you'd only based it on one, I'd be thinking maybe you got a bit hallucinogenic or something. But if it happened in the second, third,
when you see films on TV, the sort of like the cars turning upside down are always sort of shot in slow motion.
They do
and
that. So they're reflecting the reality of the human experience rather than...
That's what I'm thinking, but I don't know.
Yeah, you're on. I shall find out. Well, I shall try to find out for you. Why does the human brain switch into a form of slow motion at times of epic trauma or emergency? 26 minutes, or why do we think it does? Well, maybe the more pertinent question. 26 minutes after 12. It is... Well, we'll just crack on, shall we? James is in Hackney. James, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on, mate.
So the onion question.
Yes.
I was thinking about this.
Oh,
it didn't take me long to think about it, actually.
Oh, all right.
It's quite obvious.
Is it?
It's the quality of the onions.
Yeah.
Right. So I currently grow onions down in allotment, and when I give those onions to people, as you do, they all cry. Not when I give them to them, as they're cutting them, and they cry a lot.
Right.
And I think that's down to the fact
that they're fresh. They're fresh.
And they've not been kept sitting around. So that guy, I think he don't know his onions, and I don't know where he's getting it from.
He don't know his onions.
He's not getting them organic.
He's not, is he?
Getting them from they've probably been sitting around for a while.
Yeah, but if you take a bag of onions, and only one of them the chances are they've all come from the same crop, isn't it? And had the same life journey and been in the same storage and been on the same transport, and only one of them makes you cry.
Yeah, but I don't think that rings true. I don't think anyone's done that test. Did he do that test?
The average onion chopper is going to have a bag of onions. Very few of us buy our onions individually, and if you notice that one of them has made you cry but the rest of the bag hasn't, you've got something else going on.
No, I don't believe. I don't believe that.
Really?
I think that's nonsense. Yeah.
No, then that's a bit strong, James. Nonsense.
Well, I think. Yeah. So he's actually saying he bought a bag of onions.
Yeah.
And only one of them made him cry. How many onions in the bag?
7.
All right, you just made that up. All right. Let's say it's 7. It's got to be the quality of the onions. When I chop the onions, I cry so much I have to go and have a little sit down, put the telly on, and then go back to
There's
it.
a couple of things you can do if you're interested. You chop it in half, and then you chop off both ends of the half, and then you chop the onion.
Yeah.
Leave one end on. So chop it in half and then leave one end attached to the rest of the onion until you finish chopping the rest of it, and it won't release as much chemicals and you won't cry. Or pop it in the freezer.
I've done that quite a lot.
Oh, all right then, clever clogs. Or pop it in the freezer or get it much colder. So there's
I've not tried the freezer one. I'll try that.
So they might be less fresh. So the second bit of the question was whether or not they've become less tear-inducing over the years, to which your theory would work, because they've probably become less fresh over the years.
Yeah, and they're stored in suspended animation in lorries for months, right?
Yeah.
They lose their freshness. Like when I store the onions, I hang them up over the summer.
Nice.
And they go through to the winter.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
But obviously, as you start hitting sort of those months, you get a few more ones you have got to throw away, and they lose their freshness.
What? There's many layers to this theory.
Oh yeah.
What is the when you get them fresh from the allotment, do they all make you cry?
Yes.
Well, I think that's the proof of the pudding, don't you? I think that is. Before you go, what's coming up now? What do you plant about now? Do you plant anything now?
Well, some people do, but I'm not, because I'm a bit lazy.
Oh.
But well, I'm not lazy. I'm busy.
Yeah.
In other bits and bobs.
Sure.
Tomatoes are coming up now. Courgette.
My tomatoes. No, not what's coming up now. What could you sow now? Because the tomatoes, I've never had greener tomatoes than I've got. None of mine have turned pink yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, mine are beautiful and red.
Are they really?
You can plant you can plant some cabbages now.
I might plant some red cabbage.
Beans.
I might plant some. What about sprouts? Are you any good with sprouts?
Yeah, I'm doing them for the first time this year. They're about a foot high already.
When did you sow them?
I've sowed them in spring. They'll be ready to harvest.
Yeah, so it's too late for me to sow sprouts unless I can get some plugs, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can sow loads of other little bits.
I just wondered. My beetroot's come up a treat this year. I'm eating more of it than ever. I love my beetroots.
I love it. It's my favourite. Have you got a good recipe for beetroot?
Yeah, go on. You give me yours and I'll give you mine.
All right. What you do, you get the beetroot. Obviously, clean it a bit.
Yeah.
Rub it with some olive oil and some rock salt.
Yeah.
And then put it in the oven at 200, just like you would a jacket potato.
Do you not wrap it first?
No, you don't have to wrap it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, go on.
Because you can do, but then all the salt sort of penetrates the skin, and then eat that.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
That does sound nice. Here's what I did. Mine's a Greek recipe called pantzaria. All right.
Is that the one with the yogurt?
No, you don't need the yogurt. You can serve it with yogurt if you want, or you can serve it with what they call skoudalia, which is like a garlic and potato dip. But I don't. What I do is I boil them, just till they're firm, and leave them in the water to cool again, so that they reabsorb all of the nutrients, and then peel them. Obviously, you leave the root on when you boil them. Peel them, chop them, pop them in a bowl, olive oil, bit of red wine vinegar. And you're laughing. And then serve it, James, with some soft goat's cheese.
I'm salivating.
And I am salivating as well, and I had it last night. Round of applause for James.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Happy gardening. I'm jealous of your sprouts, James. I really am. Here's Amelia Cox with the headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 12:33. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where the questions still in need of answers include... We had the nice one, didn't we, about the ambulance sirens. Tony sorted that one out. Was it two Jameses on the onions? It was a question, and has that ever happened before? It must have happened before. Oh, I'll tell you what hasn't happened before. The person who asked the question is called James. The person who answered the question is called James. And the person who presented the programme is called James. That can only happen with one name. That's not an opinion, that's counting. When did X's come to represent kisses? And why do blackbirds, or specifically Tony's blackbird Snowy, wipe their food in soil before consuming it? Why do we call kids kids instead of, for example, puppies or kits? That's what a baby beaver is called, Keith, a kit. K-I-T, kit. And I've written accidents next to Jan's name and I've forgotten. Slow motion. Why do humans see things in slow motion at times of epic stress or trauma? 34 after 12. Quick shout to Tammy. She says, I'm here in traffic. There's an ambulance nearby. I'm listening keenly for the different sounds. That's how Mystery Hour affects lives. Changes lives for the better. Makes us more curious and more informed. Keep us posted, Tammy. Chris is in Exeter. Chris, question or answer?
Good afternoon. Question, please.
Carry on, Chris.
It's a question that's been bugging me and my wife and our 2 kids for quite some time now.
Excellent.
Back when the 2 kids were in reception, or at different ages, but they're both the same teacher, they were taught by Miss Brown. The next class up, year 2, the teacher was Miss White.
God.
She then moved on, which then led my son coming home wondering what colour his next teacher's surname would be.
Sweet. Yes.
So, the question, quite simply, is why do some surnames have colours and others don't? You don't go to the doctors and see, Dr. Turquoise or I don't know,
maybe
Mr.
in
Blues
France.
or...
I don't know, but no. Generally speaking, so I mean, black, white, brown. What else? Can we think? Green, black, white, brown, green. Well, mustard. I suppose thinking of Cluedo now. So you've got Scarlet. Have you ever met a Scarlet? Mustard,
no,
Colonel Mustard. In real life, you've not met a Colonel Mustard, have you? If you
No,
that would be.
I mean, there's quite a
otter,
few. There's quite a few character names from books, Charlotte Gray and Charlie Brown, etc.
Gray.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of Greys. I had a teacher called Gray. So why? Yeah, I mean, I suppose the possible answer is that they're not referring to colour. Oddly, they might be referring to something else. So Brown could go Brian. I mean, these names change over the years. Or
we wonder whether black originated from like a blacksmith or a trade or something.
Or hair colour. I mean, little indicators back in the day that marked you out from the rest of the group, rest of the tribe or community. I don't know. So why are some names colours? Why are some colours names? It doesn't matter which way round you ask the question, does it?
My 2 kids would very much appreciate an answer to that one. Thank you.
We shall do our best. What are their names?
Noah and Amelie.
Noah and Amelie. We shall do our best for both of you. Thank you very much. 12:36 is the time. And actually, as a special message for Noah and Amelie, you've got a very special dad there, because a lot of dads would have made up an answer. And then you would have gone off into life believing the made-up answer that your dad had told you. And at some point subsequent, you'd have offered up that answer in public company, and everyone would have laughed at you for believing something so obviously stupid, which you believed because you trusted, quite rightly, your dad. So well done, Dad, for not making stuff up. If only we could all be like Chris. Which reminds me, I must play some darts later today. 12:37 is the time. You're listening to Mystery. I've got some phone lines free for answers, ideally, and there's still room for questions. So we've done the onions. James certainly knew his onions. Blackbirds, kisses, kids and kids, slow motions, colours and names. 0345 60600973. There is indeed a cricketer called Phil Mustard. But where would the name... it's not really a colour, is it? Mustard yellow comes from the condiment of mustard. But anyway, if you can answer any of these, 0345 60600973. is the number that you need. Waleed is in Rickmansworth. Waleed, question or answer?
Afternoon, James. Afternoon. Question, please. Second time caller. 7 years ago, last spoke to you about a question.
Thank you for keeping such a close tabs on proceedings.
Welcome. Every week.
That's my man. Listening. Love it. Go
on. Why is it that we have a high proportion of bungalows in coastal towns?
Yes.
So I went out to, I don't remember where I went out to, somewhere last week.
Yeah.
And we noticed that there's a number of bungalows in coastal towns.
Yeah, this is true.
Why is that?
Well, there are two reasons for this.
So you've noticed it, haven't you?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, so I'm not the only one.
Oh, yes. There are two reasons for this. The first reason is that seaside resorts are popular retirement destinations.
You Googled that?
And I did not Google anything. I'm not allowed to Google anything. In fact, you can see on YouTube I didn't Google anything at all. Hey, by the way,
if I'm honest, I Googled it and that's the answer that I got. I wasn't convinced.
Well, I haven't finished yet.
My litmus for the actual.
What do you mean you got? You're not allowed to Google. Well, I don't know what the rule is. If you ask the question, of course it's part. I haven't finished yet. You interrupted me.
Go on then.
It's part of the right answer.
You're going to say high winds, aren't you?
No.
Okay, all right, go on then. I'll give you a chance.
So obviously, elderly people are less likely to be able to negotiate the stairs. So if you, as a builder, were preparing property with the hope of selling it to retiring people, then building a bungalow is quite a clever commercial move, right?
What's your qualifications, James?
Genius. And now here's the second bit. Ready?
Go on.
Views. So everyone wants a sea view, right? As you move back from the shore and the land rises gently on a gradient, if everyone's in a bungalow, Then everyone can see a bit of the sea instead of just the back of next door's house.
Okay, I think I'm convinced on the second answer.
It's the two.
First one, not necessarily.
But marry
like
the two together.
One.
Put the two together, and you're golden, right?
Humble pie.
Yeah, nice. I was quite pleased with that. Round of applause for me, please, Keith. And there'll be planning rules as well, but they're probably linked to the view side of things as opposed to the retirement side of things. I'll see you in 7 years, Waleed. 2030. I'll see you in 2033. Oh, he's gone.
Will do, hopefully.
Oh, no, there he is. There, carry on. You are allowed to ring in more often than every 7 years. It's just John in Liverpool who rings in several times in the same week to say exactly the same thing to slightly different presenters. I can't believe I didn't pick up on that myself. Guess we won't be ringing this programme getting on this programme anytime soon to repeat his nonsense about Keir Starmer and the winter fuel payments. George is in York. George, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on, George.
So, basically, we're having a chat at work the other week, and there's a pigeon in my garden.
Yes, what am I going to do?
Very specific sound.
Is that a UB40 song?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
There's a pigeon in my garden. What am I going to do?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, carry on.
But basically, there's one at the office that I work at that's about 20 minutes away, and it still sounds the same as the one that's in the garden.
Yeah.
But then my friend who lives in Birmingham, who I work with, said that the pigeons there sound completely different. So I was wondering if pigeons have accents based on where they live, and because obviously they're migratory, how does that work? Yeah, just a bit confused by it, really.
Oh, is it possible that your colleague from Birmingham is yanking your chain?
Potentially, I have fallen foul of that before.
Have you?
My dad did tell me when I was younger that sheep on hills have two legs shorter than the other, so you don't roll down. And I discussed that with people, and it was quite
humiliating. So you're
humiliating.
proving the point that I made a moment ago to Noah and Amelie about their dad Chris being a good dad because he hasn't infected them with a made-up answer to a question or given them duff information that they then repeat later in life to their own embarrassment. A lot of dads made that line about the sheep with the shorter legs.
Yeah, it worked on me.
Well, it's hard to know because you haven't witnessed the accent, have you?
No, well, the ones at my parents, they live about 40 miles away, and their sound a little bit different. They're not like completely. Like,
how do they sound? Can you illustrate the difference at all?
The one in York is do 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 do, and then the one at my parents is a bit more like do 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 do. Like I should know this because my granddad used to be really into pigeons, but
what did he race them? Did he race them? Did he?
Yeah, he had a lot of them. It was quite a lot.
But that's not I think you're describing wood pigeons or collared doves. I think you might be looking at two different species of bird here. So the collared dove, I think, is the doo-doo-doo.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one I hear.
Yeah. Whereas your wood pigeon is more of a woo 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 woo.
So maybe there's just two accents then.
I think it's two birds. It's two different birds, George, not two different accents. Two different species. You've got a collared dove, and then you've got the wood pigeon, I think.
Oh, see, they all sound kind of similar to me, so I thought it was.
They do sound similar. They do sound similar, but not exactly the same, which is what you picked up on with your eagle-like ears.
Well, you learn something new every day, don't you?
You do. Well, I hope you do. Round of applause for me.
Cheers, Logan.
Oh, thanks, George. I like that one. I mean, a normal pigeon, like a common or garden pigeon, that's just a straight coo, isn't it? That's just a straight coo, coo. Anyway, Michael's in Cardiff. Michael, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on.
Time is an illusion.
Thank you. Next caller, please. Go on then.
Mystery hour doubly so as well. Sometimes it feels like it's going on forever. Sometimes it goes really quickly.
This is true. But no, like life, really.
Indeed, absolutely. People don't really perceive things differently in moments of stress and high trauma. Usually people talk about car crashes and stuff like that. It's quite a common thing. It's been researched by people, David Eagleman specifically. He's a brilliant neuroscientist. And he actually threw people off towers, and they looked at a clock that was going fast to see if they could actually see what was coming up on the clock.
Wow.
So they were falling, and they looked, and it was too fast to see normally. It's like, well, can they actually see it? And it turns out they can't. So after throwing people 30 metres off a thing hundreds and hundreds of times. They came to the conclusion that it's about recollection and the brain. There's so much going on when we perceive stuff. The brain is trying to integrate it all, and different things are at different times. Like they use a starting gun in the Olympics to start the races and not a flag or a visual thing, because we react quicker to that. So we've got all these kinds of different senses, and they're all bringing stuff at a different time, which is why it's an illusion, because there's all these different factors, all these different modalities, all these different parts of the human body that are giving us our perceptions, and then the brain sort of has to integrate them into a narrative and a story that makes sense.
So when Jan recalls her 4 accidents, she thinks that everything went into slow motion, but in the moment it didn't.
Yeah, well, we know it didn't because there were loads of people around.
Well, it can't have done, can it? Unless it's
Yeah.
a sort of Leonardo DiCaprio film or something like that, and then everybody else would have noticed. So it's her.
In the Matrix, it's only Neo that can do it, right?
Exactly that. So it's her memory, not her perception, or her memory of her perception, in fact.
They've tried to disprove. They've tried to find out for sure, and this study seems to prove that it's not perception. You're not seeing things quicker, because that was one of the theories, that we see things quicker because we're reacting quicker because we need to, because of adrenaline or something like that. But actually, it's more like it's such a rich thing and so mad for your perceptions. It takes longer for you to encode it all, and then it's high resolution because it's stressful, and you might need to do something different to what you're normally used to. So it all sort of, the temporal spread of all the stuff needs to get integrated. The brain takes a long time to do that. And then when you recall it subsequently, because we don't really remember things properly anyway, every time we remember something, we're actually recreating it and re-encoding it as yet another thing to be experienced again in the future. So there's no such thing as real memory anyway. Lovely. It's all really messy. And it's all about
time is an illusion. To end where we began, time is an illusion.
Yeah, something like that.
Qualifications?
I studied philosophy of cognitive science at Sussex University, and I listened in half of the lectures, and this was one of the things I remembered.
One of the things that stuck. And just to be clear on that experiment, was it Eagleton? What was it?
Eagleman.
David Eagleman. He wasn't killing people. He wasn't killing people. They landed on something soft.
They were volunteers, and it seemed that it lasted 36% longer before, but then they tried to test whether they could perceive things quicker, and they couldn't. So it is about perception rather than
experience.
It's about recollection rather than the actual experience itself.
Round of applause for Michael. There you go.
Thank you.
Putting his degree to use. His parents would be so proud. It's 12:47.
James O'Brien on LBC.
49 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Simon's been in touch. He says, James, down here in Hampshire, we have our wood pigeons who sound as though they're singing Don't Call Me Baby from whatever popular song that was. If you could please coo that before the end of the programme, it will make me very happy. I'm tempted, actually. Keith, give me a chance before Sheila takes over. I may bottle it. I may get a bit of stage fright. But I'm quite tempted to have a go at that one. A lot of you enjoyed that segment of the programme when I was doing pigeon impressions. And I just had another one of those moments where I wonder what happens if you've just turned on the radio and you hear me say the first words you hear me say today. That was a rather good part of the programme where I was doing pigeon impressions. Or indeed collared doves, because I did the whole range. We shall see. And a lot of Douglas Adams fans listening as well, which is very gratifying. Niall and Nick and others, because, of course, time is an illusion. As our last caller reminded us, but as Douglas Adams wrote, lunchtime, doubly so. Gideon's in Guildford. Gideon, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on, mate.
Hi, James. Yeah, so I've just started growing chilies.
Hang on. I don't know if you've accidentally tuned in about 10 minutes ago and thought that you were listening to a gardening phone-in.
I woke up this morning. And I thought about it, and I've been meaning to call you.
Okay, that's good then, because me and James were just chewing the fat about gardening, like as fellow gardeners.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
But no, it's all right. You're allowed to have a gardening-ish, if indeed that is the direction in which you're going.
Yep.
Go on.
So, like I said, I've been growing chilies. I'm an amateur grower.
Yeah.
So, what you're meant to do is you meant to water the chilies at a certain time.
Yeah.
If you don't water them.
Yeah.
If you reduce the frequency of you watering the chili plants, they are meant to get hotter.
Yeah.
But I don't know why.
Hey, come on. Think about it.
You
No?
tell me. That's the question.
All right.
No.
Okay, I'm going to do a little experiment in your imagination.
Yeah, go on then.
Right, take a chili, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Put it in the flask of your mini food processor.
Yeah.
Add 1 cup of water.
Yeah.
Zhuzh it up.
Yeah.
Okay, have a little sip.
Yeah.
Okay, now add 5 more cups of water.
Yeah.
Have a little sip.
Yeah.
What was hotter?
The first one.
There you go.
Oh.
Happy?
That's straightforward then.
Nice one. Round of applause for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go, Gideon. That's nice. Gideon in Guildford. I love those sort of serendipitous collisions of name and place. Florence is in Camden. Question or answer, Florence?
Answer.
Carry on.
So I originally called with an answer to the blackbird question, but I have something to add to the pigeons as well.
Yeah. Well, let's do the blackbirds first, because I have to be careful about allowing people to go off-piste.
Okay. So why does the blackbird dip its food in the soil before taking it to the nest?
Yes.
So blackbirds, particularly when they're feeding their young, often kind of wipe earthworms through the soil.
Oh, yeah.
And it's for 2 reasons, either to take the slime off or, as you alluded to when you mentioned the gizzard, to add grit, because birds don't have teeth.
Oh, go me.
So they need help breaking down and digesting their food. And that would be particularly the case when they're feeding their young.
So they work like little sort of mobile teeth almost, don't they? The
That's
bits
right,
of grit.
yeah.
The bits of grit. Love it.
That's right. So as it goes through the digestive tract, the grit kind of helps to break down the food and then they can digest it. Why they were doing this with the pellets and not the raisins, I'm not as sure. But I wonder whether the pellets are more earthworm-like.
Yeah, I like it.
The raisins.
Yeah, qualifications?
I've written a book called Wild City about urban wildlife.
Oh, that'll do. So take round of applause for Florence.
You missed something on the pigeon.
Okay, go on then. If I let you do this, you have to make Simon happy by cooing to the tune of "Don't Call Me Baby."
Oh my God!
It's up to you.
Don't
Take it or leave it.
But I don't know which one is "Don't Call Me Baby."
All right. Hang on. Here it is.
Don't call me baby.
No, it's not that one. It's not that one. Sorry,
That
Florence.
takes me right back.
Yeah, and me. Is that Betty Boo? No, who was that? Anyway, Kate, you go on. Tell me about the pigeons.
Well, pigeons, not specifically, but birds in general can have different dialects.
Oh.
That is a thing. I think you were completely correct in your answer. It sounds like there were 2 species of pigeon he was talking about.
Thank you very much.
But birds can have different dialects or accents. It just depends on the species, because some birds, they know how to sing innately when they're born, but others are taught. And the reason I know this is I co-founded a bird song recognition app called Warbler that's like Shazam but for birds. And when we were training our machine learning technology, we had to be fairly specific about the area of
well, isn't that interesting?
Bird songs that we used to train it with.
I'm going to have a look at Warbler because I use Chirpomatic, which is presumably like VHS versus Betamax, is it?
We came out first,
I'm going to have a look at Warbler because I've been a bit disappointed by it. They told me the other day I had a kingfisher. They said I had a kingfisher on Chirpomatic, and it was a great tip.
Yeah, that's a bit far off.
I know. And I got a buzzard came up as well at one point when I was in my back garden. There's no buzzard in my back garden. So you are Florence Wilkinson, author, journalist, co-founder of Birdsong Recognition App and Citizen Science Project person.
That is correct. That's me.
Have a round of applause on me.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Lovely stuff. It's a beautiful looking book as well, Wild City. Melanie's in Forfar. Melanie, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on.
It's the descriptive surnames.
Yes.
Brown, grey, white, black, and so forth. They're all descriptive of aspects of a person or the place they came from. You also get things like Whitehead, and there was newsreader Brian Redhead.
Yes, I remember him well, actually. I was talking about him yesterday when someone was interviewing me about my first experiences of radio, would you believe?
Well, There you go. And then some people think that reed might be red as well.
Okay.
And then near the green would be for green. There are a few other ones like ball, which is a description of bald. And then...
hang on, we've got enough now. Qualifications?
I am a committee member of the Surname Society, and my surname that I...
Really?
Yes.
Fantastic.
And the surname that I study is actually an old Celtic word for brown.
Which is?
Don.
Don. How many people are in the Surname Society?
300, 400, something like that.
And you're the chair, are you?
I'm not the chair, no.
Have you had any honorific positions in the Surname Society?
Yes, I'm the editor of the newsletter.
Right, that's it then. You get one of these.
I'm Ray Liotta, and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. If you build it, they will come.
There you go. There you go, man. No, there you can stick that in the newsletter, won't you?
I will.
I should hope so. Some people thought Florence deserved a Ray Liotta, and to be fair, they may have a point. But it's too late now. And anyway, Tim's in Rayleigh.
Good afternoon, James.
With an otter?
I have an answer.
Carry on quickly, because I want a coup.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I've got to say, I think you should start every show now with a different bird each day. Just to lighten the.
Get on with it. Get on with it.
Right, kid. The word kid. A number of different possibilities, but mostly from where we get words like kith and kin from.
Yes.
It's Old English. Germanic in root, and it comes from kin really rather than kith. Kin means to.
So they could apply equally. So they'd have just arrived. They'd have arrived at the same place from different places. Yes, exactly.
Although the word comes from 1,000 years ago, it only started being used about 300 years ago
for
humans. In English as kid.
For humans,
but
not for goats.
Referral to kids. Goats, I'm no expert.
It's further back. Qualifications.
English teacher and Saxon historical interpreter.
Of course you are. Round of applause.
There you go.
Okay, I'm going to have a go because Simon asked so nicely. So I think the tune that he's got is this one, and I'm going to coo it in the style of a wood pigeon. It's Don't Call Me Baby. So what tune are you hearing when I say Don't Call Me? So it'd be like this. Ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah? Ooh, 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 ooh. What's that? What happened then? Keith, you can't just stop playing random. That's not the chorus of... Anyway, that's what I think happened. If you missed any of today's show, I'm not sure you missed much. You can listen back up on Catch Up on Global Play. The first half an hour, the phones weren't working. It's a collector's item, this one. You'll also find all of LBC shows there to catch up on as well. Who won the thing? Give it to Florence, because she probably should have got a Ray Liotta, but she gets a mystery ad ball game instead. Download Global Player for free from your app store or head to globalplayer.com. Coming up at 4 on LBC, it's Ben Kentish, but now it's Sheila Fogarty.
Your first radio memories, were they asking you about your memories of being on the radio?
No.
Or listening to the radio. Can you remember your very first radio moments?
I remember listening to Brian Redhead in the car when Dad was driving me to school on the Today programme, and I remember listening to Gordon Astley, who's probably listening to this now, on Beacon Radio in Wolverhampton when I was sort of 8 or 9 years old. And Gordon is a lovely man who came to one of my shows in Manchester, and I had the full circle of radio experience
and life.
He had the finest jingle of all time.
Are you going to coo that at me as well?
I won't coo it. Gordon drives away your boredom. If you wake up feeling ghastly, tune in to Gordon Astley.
That's not bad.
It's my favourite.
Pretty good.
Still the best.
Good to know. Mine is RTE Radio.
Oh, of course.
Hurling commentary.
Yes.
Mum and her friend Phyllis doing all the sandwiches and the juice. Dad and his friend Pat Cohen lying on a, picnic rug, listening to the hurling.
Wow.
While having non-alcoholic beer.
Of course. Radio.
Yeah.
Hey?
It's great.
Gotta love it.
That's got them going for the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you.
James O'Brien on LBC.